call the meeting to order. Salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we had cafe services, was gonna be up next here, but he's running a little late, so we're gonna skip that down after consent agenda. So we're just gonna go right into public comment. Anybody? Seeing none? I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
For a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. We need a change on the minutes.
Okay, can you tell us a page?
I will tell you, it's page 5. For the budget committee, we need to add Mr. Fogg's name to it as the alternate.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
The budget committee rep, the
Yep.
alternate was
Ralph.
Mr. Fogg.
I also have a
Go ahead,
amendment. Sorry.
That's all right.
Page 3 of the packet, page 1 of the minutes, under the consent agenda. It states that he was provided with copies of public meeting minutes, asked for non-public meeting minutes as well. I was provided the last 12 months of public meeting minutes, so I just want to make sure that it's clear that I got 12 months worth, not 24 or 25 months worth.
Okay.
Do I still have the floor? Go ahead.
I have one change I'd like to make. I believe on page 5, it was 4-1. On number 10, the public session, there were 5 of us, so it's 4-1, the vote. The non-public session, the very last line with members voting, should be 4-1.
4-1?
Yeah.
Carl?
Page 4 of the packet, 2 of the minutes, near the end, just above Transportation Director's report. I would like it in the record that I had stated I intend to attend the meeting on March 22nd. I would like that to be part of the record because that is what I said.
So Ralph, that was, what was your?
I had stated that I had, well, a long part of it, I was saying that I had attended both the morning and afternoon session of Dr. Smith's presentation. And then I stated I intend to attend the March 22nd meeting. I think that's, should be part of these minutes.
All right.
Anybody else on that?
I'll make a motion to approve the public meeting minutes with amendments.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we have a motion and a second to the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Reports. Superintendent's report.
Chairman, point of order. Yep, non-public, some minutes to be as well.
I think this is when we have to open it.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I'm sorry. I spaced out this minute. Go ahead, Rob.
Bob, I'd just like to have a quick motion to reconsider the consent agenda. I didn't realize D was under that. I should have read through.
You know what?
I believe that should be open to board discussion beyond the consent agenda.
We haven't gone over those yet.
Okay, well, they should be in the consent agenda, I guess so.
So can we move that up
Sure.
into new business when we get there?
Sure, let's do that, Rob.
Thank you.
Non-public minutes. Everybody has an envelope?
We need a roll call.
We do, 1 second. So, yeah,
I'll make a motion to approve the non-public minutes, which will be sealed without any amendment.
do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Blood eye.
Johnson, aye.
Cole, bye.
Sorry, I didn't plan ahead.
Yes, you did, Teresa.
Will there be any follow-up on that? What we just read?
Jerry? Did you read it?
Did not.
Take a look.
But I think the answer is no. The answer is no.
Nothing at all? We get to know nothing?
Nothing you need to know at this point.
Unless it gets to us.
Hmm?
Unless it gets to our level
Yeah.
or that level, but
All right, are we all set with that?
Well, I guess where I had made the motion, how long did we seal it for at the last meeting? Was there an indefinite period, or was it 2 years?
Can't do it
Was it-
indefinite.
You can't do it indefinite.
2.
I wouldn't think
Yeah,
so.
no, you can't.
I think we did 2 years.
Well, let me say, it's not recommended to do it indefinitely.
Did
Well, I
you
mean,
you wrote
sometimes
2
it-
years?
You,
I don't
it's,
recall a
it's,
time period.
Mr. Fogg, just to clarify, there's nothing that states you can't do it for indefinitely,
Right.
but they recommend doing it for a finite time, reviewing it again at that time, and determining if you want to extend that sealed minutes.
Thank you. So
Sir.
should that motion have a deadline or a expiration date?
That's why I was, yeah, did we already do that?
We already did vote on it.
I thought we did 2 years.
Oh,
I thought we did, but I could be wrong.
No, you may
I
be
remember
right.
the discussion about not wanting to continue to keep sealing non-public there, which we had a good discussion about that, but want to vote on it,
You wanna just do it again,
just to be sure.
So I wanna make the motion?
Make a motion to seal the non-public minutes for 2 years.
Do I have a second?
second.
All in favor?
Cole, bye. Sorry.
Blood eye.
Johnson, aye.
What'd you call?
Macaulay, aye.
I'll be against that one. I seconded it just so we could vote.
Sure. Did you get that, Larissa? All that? All right.
You can ask him that again.
Superintendent's report. It would be you, Jerry.
Thank you, sir.
Already discussed it.
So, as you've seen the report, E-rate continues on. What I thought, I was looking to find out when we could expect our reimbursement. The reimbursement doesn't occur until after the filing window closes, and that filing window closed on Friday. Excuse me,
I think we're a
on
little
page
out of
28.
28, okay. Okay.
That filing window closed on March 30th, so it's in the process right now of being processed for reimbursement. Ms. Kevler did do some research on paying for a strategic planning process with a grant, which that does fall under what we can use for strategic planning, training, and facilitation. So we're in the process of researching people that may be able to provide that. And right now, I know that New Hampshire School Board does it, and a few other people do it. So we're looking at what they could provide and what the cost would be. We'll be back. I hope to have an answer well before school gets out in June, so we can start that process, at least the planning process of it.
Of what? What are we planning?
Strategic planning. Strategic planning means that really you're looking at a 3 to 5 year plan that would drive all your decision-making as a board, would drive your budgeting process, where you want to be, what's going to take to get there, and what's the process we do it, and where we want to, how we want to get to where we want to be. Make sense?
It does.
Excellent. We had National History Day, which is a pretty typical for the last 5 years. Ms. Kebler and I got a chance to go and sit in and judge on the National History Day. We had some, wonderful submissions. Some of those students have been advanced onto the state. Mr. Soul will be making some time to come in here to show off what the kids have done, and it was pretty impressive, as always. Stratford Learning Center, if you don't know, as board members, we are members of Stratford Learning Center, and being part of the Stratford Learning Center team, that we have a seat at their board meetings. And so I met with the Stratford Learning Center board. I do so monthly. And Kevin Murphy, who is the director of Stratford Learning Center, would like to come to each of the team members' board meetings to talk about what Stratford Learning Center does, what they provide, the services that we pay for, and Ann can talk a little better than I can. But I'm going to see if we can get them in here probably early fall. So before we go into the budget process, you'll have an idea of what it is we're actually paying for. As you know, we have cafe services here today to talk to us as soon as Mr. Farrow gets here. Knowing that we have to renew our contract every year. Every 5 years, we have to go out to bid on that. We don't need to go out to bid right now, but we will have to choose if we're going to renew our contract with cafe services.
I hear there's been an adjustment to the way that you're serving lunch.
Yeah, there has. Mr.
Successful.
Lampron, yeah. Mr. Lampron we were talking about that today. It's the kids have a lot more choices.
And it's quicker, by
Is it?
my understanding. Is it going smoothly and quickly?
It's prepared and ready to grab, and there's additional options.
Kudos, kudos. That was a
Pretty-
tough one.
Ralph has a question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Back to SLC.
Yes, sir.
Is that anything that board members can attend, or is it just you reporting back to the board?
Is what anything that
The monthly meeting with the SLC.
I'd have to ask them, Mr. Fogg. I don't know that, but it's a board meeting, but I'm not sure if it's a public board meeting for Stratford Learning Center.
Just when you were saying we're members of that.
Yes.
Does it lend any logic to the idea of one member of the board, probably wouldn't be me, I'd volunteer, attending these meetings to report back to the board?
I can ask that question, but I don't know the answer. Ms. Kevin?
I can answer that question. There's another, it's not a board, but it's a committee that is, represents the board members of member districts. So they, I'm sure sometime in the next few weeks, you'll be asked if there's a
Sure.
board member that would like to be a member of,
Okay.
participate in that. I
What-
think they meet quarterly.
What I would like, I will be bringing back to, they do offer a lot of events that they really want to promote Stratford Learning Center, where people can go to. Like, I wasn't able to get to it last month, but a competition put on by the students at Stratford Learning Center. And they really want people to come and check that out, and they really want to celebrate the successes they have there. So I will certainly bring those events back to the board.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Agostino and I attended the New Hampshire School Administrative Association's legislative update. There are several pieces of key legislation that may be affecting schools. We're going to be keeping an eye on those. Right now, nothing is passed. The Senate at this point, it's all been passed by the House. As soon as we get further into that, and the people, if they're going to pass, whether it's manifest hardship or guns in schools or food service, whatever it is, I'll bring that back to you as soon as it gets passed, because we may have to adjust our policies to be in compliance with those legislative changes.
Any questions? Oh, Ms. Sandy?
Yes, I just want to thank Mr. Gregoire for going to attending the Stratford Learning Center monthly meeting. I've been to many meetings here as a private citizen, and this is the first time I've ever seen a report done. And it's really nice to know that we're making that connection, because they really do a service to our kids here.
Yeah,
I look
they
forward
certainly
to
do.
hearing about what they provide.
Great.
Any other questions for Jerry? Thank you, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Student Service Director's Report.
So we held the third of our events with Dr. Malcolm Smith on March 22nd. I'm sorry that I gave you such a long, detailed report on it, but I thought there were some pretty key factors that came out of it. He helped give us the definition of bullying. If you recall, he was the co-author of the New Hampshire bullying law. So in order to find that it's a true bullying issue, there needs to be an intent to harm. There needs to be an imbalance of power. The incident rises to the level that makes the student feel unsafe, fearful in school, and he suggests that it doesn't really matter where in the school it takes place, or social media. Jen?
Is that a, like a legal definition, or is this something he came up with?
This is the legal
Legal
definition in
definition?
the New Hampshire bullying law.
Excellent, thank you.
He shared with us 3 different types of bullies. I say this word wrong all the time, narcissist bully, that's the speech pathologist in me, which about 75% of kids that are bullies fall under this category. This is a person that has clear social learning deficits and may become pathological without any intervention. A pathological bully, characteristics of this type of bully are they're sneaky and indirect, controlling, they tend to stir things up. They use a posse or a peer group. The kid that will form a gang and have their peers do the dirty work. He talks about the pathological bully as being addicted to bullying. A retaliation bully is one that's often noticed too late. A lot of little things have contributed to it. He's highly associated with violence in the building. The bully hurts themselves, drugs, cutting, alcohol, they bottle it up, and then suddenly it implodes. This type of bully is considered the worst type of bully of all. We talked about steps to help a bully, which I found really helpful in my daily thinking about how we work with kids that are just having different challenging behaviors. He says they must tell you what they did wrong and why it was wrong. They must tell you alternative behaviors they could have used. And the student must perform an act of kindness and make it right. He talks a lot about atonement. And he talks about, where there could be an incident where a bully and the victim doesn't really want atonement. The victim doesn't want anything to do with the bully. He suggests that the students still do some form of atonement, some form of some form of kindness to someone maybe who witnessed the bullying event, or to the classroom teacher. I think we've talked a lot about that. How do you have 2 8th graders who are really angry at each other? How do you get atonement? And I've thought about, well, being kind could be helping Joe. Just some form of kindness that helps him atone what he's done. I shouldn't keep saying him, he, she.
Oh, it's proper grammar.
Huh?
Him is proper grammar.
Okay, thank you. He did give us some recommendations for investigation. He recommended that we develop a team to do the bully investigations. He recommended that more than one administrator be on that team, that a staff member with expertise in mental health be on that team, and to be the person that would interview the victim. He suggests perhaps a community member with experience in mental health issues. Developing a student report was another recommendation he made, so he's going to share some templates of student reporting that we can have available for students to be able to report if they feel that there's bullying going on. He talks about adding signage throughout the building with a theme of stop bullying. I had the question, so there's a very fine timeline when it comes to an investigation of bullying. So I discussed my concern around having a team do the investigation, because as it is 1 or 2 people doing it, it's sometimes hard to meet the timeline. But he shared ways of making sure that didn't happen so that we could meet our timelines. We discussed 3 different curriculums with him. The Courage to Care is a curriculum that he designed. It's designed for grade 6. It's a 9-week program. Operation Respect is designed to be used in classrooms grades pre-K through 8. it's free. It's written, one of the main supporters of Operation Respect is Peter of Peter, Paul, and Mary. Was it Peter or was it Paul? It's either Peter or Paul. And the song that they had, Don't Laugh at Me, or is it Don't Laugh at Me? Come on, Ralph, you should know that.
I don't.
You don't. It's part of the theme of the curriculum, so we're looking at that. And Choose Love, the Choose Love movement is a curriculum that was designed after the Sandy Hook incident, and it's designed to be used in classrooms grades pre-K through 8. It was designed, the greatest supporter of this curriculum was a mother and father who lost a child at Sandy Hook. In addition to the work that we did with Dr. Malcolm Smith, we've contracted with Stratford Learning Center for Jill Heath, who is a social worker and a mentor for schools who implement positive behavioral interventions and supports. We have implemented it. I don't think we've implemented it to its fullest extent. So Jill's going to be working with our tier teams to help us develop classroom expectations, school-wide expectations, and then as we develop our resources and our tools, we'll roll it out to the students. Both of these initiatives have been funded through federal grants. So next steps for the fall school is to review and choose curriculum to implement within our classrooms, grades pre-K through 8. Review and revise our school and classroom expectations regarding PBIS. Develop rollouts for our school through community days. Develop a toolbox of resources for our PBIS teams to use. Purchase stop bullying signs for the halls of our building. And implement a school-wide climate and culture survey. So we have passed out the climate and culture survey now to staff, parents. We're hoping to get all of that information back before April vacation. We'll re-implement, we'll send that back out next year or a year from now to just see how we're doing, kind of a measure of progress for us. And we'll report out how the findings of that is. Yes.
Do you have 5 more copies for us board members to fill out?
Oh, sure.
Yes, I do.
Yep, perfect.
Excellent.
Jen, can you take care of that?
Yep.
Thank you.
There will also be surveys for kids too. So students will have an opportunity to fill out a climate and culture survey.
So we'll redo it mid-year, school year next year to just kind of assess our progress and where we're going. So when I wrote the grant, one of the outcomes was to reduce reporting of bullying. He said, no, we want reporting of bullying. We want to reduce bullying, but we want reporting of bullying, so that he felt that our kids feel safe to report, that it's not a bad thing to have reporting done by kids. I think we had bus drivers, paraprofessionals, and all of our staff there, and I think they all left with smiles on their face, and that's not always the case with a 6-hour teacher workshop thing. So I feel like they really enjoyed it, got a lot out of it, and I'm already seeing little things in the hallways, and you can speak to it, but I noticed something that Joe did with 2 kids that he had clearly learned through listening to Dr. Smith. So I feel like it was a really good step in the right direction.
Ralph has a question.
Yeah, question about, did he touch on herd bullying? Sometimes there's kids that left out of the ball teams or, certain things. Did he touch at all on the idea of how to handle the herd bullying that does happen?
What he says of any kind of bullying is that consequences are not going to change the behavior. And he's very clear that the 3 things that you need to do in terms of disciplining are the 3 that I mentioned. He didn't specifically talk, do you remember, you took really great notes, so, I think that would be your pathological bully.
That's what I was going to say. He mentioned that's the bully that involves and uses
Yes.
other people to get involved
Right.
and, threaten or bring a presence to.
And I'm sure he stressed the importance of communicating from the adults to the victim, or from the adults to the bully, and I'm sure that he emphasized the importance for the adults to listen, not only to the student being victimized, but the student having the bullying issues that is the bully, right? He did stress the importance of communication.
He talked a lot about being a good listener when kids come to you and bring problems to you, such.
Go ahead, Cindy.
I had a question under the discipline on steps to help a bully. How do they verbally tell you what they did wrong and why it was wrong, or do they have a form that they fill out?
I think Jen's developed a form for them to debrief.
I do know that when I was a sub at Woodman Park School years ago, they had a form that the kids would have to fill out, tell you what they did wrong, how they were going to solve it. I don't know if they still use it, but if...
So I have several forms depending on the grade level and depending on the situation that I've been using with students that have been sent down for any reason, but it's to get at those things, you know. What was my action, how did it?
I thought it was very helpful for them.
Yeah.
It made them reflect, and they couldn't, you know, we usually did it at lunchtime after they had their lunch, and they had to fill it out, and once they filled it out and we were satisfied with what they put on, they could continue on with their day. But they had to do that before they could proceed.
Yeah, I've been using it with almost every student to help them think about what their actions were and who was affected by it and how did it affect them and what can they do to make it right and what can they do differently in the future.
Good.
I have a question. So, either one of you guys, so as a child, is that fixable to be bullied? You know, can they grow out of it?
So, can
Go
I
ahead,
speak to
Jim.
that?
Yeah.
So the thinking behind the atonement was, Ann mentioned bullying is addictive, but these acts of kindness release similar feel-good cells within your body, so that dopamine is released from acts of kindness as well. So we said it's not the first, second, or third, but he's like after that fourth time or so, you'll start to see a turn. So we're really trying to keep the dopamine coming, but instead of releasing it after bullying another kid, we're getting it for atoning and doing something positive for somebody. That's kind of, because this is fairly new to us, we're bouncing ideas off each other as to, you know, if someone hurt someone else's feelings by calling them a name, what's our list of atonement activities that we can go to? So we're working on that list as we speak.
Did you, Ralph, you have something?
Go ahead, James.
Petrus?
Did they address the victim? Like, I hear a lot about the bullying and the bullier.
I think that's where he talked a lot about really listening to the victim and really making sure the victim knew that you were caring and you were understanding and you were going to investigate. He recommended, and I think it's a great recommendation, that person on the team that has a good background in mental health be the person that investigates or talks with the victim and supporting the victim.
You were first up ahead.
How about you?
Someone had mentioned that you were inviting the local daycares, didn't you? Say that? Did anybody come?
I don't, unfortunately, they did not.
Darn.
Ralph?
Our preschool teacher was there.
So during the morning presentation to the students, Dr. Smith had mentioned the idea of his teacher in the one classroom with the 28 kids. That teacher made sure that each child had a breakfast in the morning. Do you folks find that some kids who are coming to classes hungry, are they getting an opportunity to have some sort of breakfast, so you're making sure that those hunger pangs aren't something that they're dealing with, as opposed to listening to the teacher or being, is it one of the steps?
So we offer breakfast, and of course it's available for anybody, but because Paul School is intimate, strengths are that those students that don't connect with an adult in a bigger school, that doesn't happen often. But the drawback is that the students that can hide and blend in a bigger school can't do that in an intimate school. So the way that we're tight and intimate, it works both for us and in ways against us as well. So that teacher who made the connection with the student every day, we get a fair amount of that. But the opposite of that, the student that just blends in and goes under the line, we don't have much of that.
Can I speak to that?
Sure. Yeah.
So not only does Paul's school offer breakfast and lunch, they also were fortunate enough to receive a fresh fruit and vegetable grant through the state, through the feds. So there is fresh fruit and vegetables offered throughout the day at each classroom, just to fill that gap.
Yeah.
I think one of the issues that really comes up that I've seen with kids frequently is school vacations, weekends, things of that nature. You know, we get, as I've told teachers for years, you know, we have them for 6.5 hours. And if there's difficulty at home, if there's lack of food at home, if there's no heat at home, those kids are going back into that for the 17.5 hours. And so really it's identifying what those kids are going back into for an environment that may not be conducive to learning, to care, to just the basic needs sometimes. It's not just a school issue, it really is a larger community issue, and not just in Wakefield, but societally.
Go ahead, Jim.
There's also snacks that teachers, like Mr. Lundgren was saying, who have identified those students that, you know, might need something more, so they can go fill up a bag of snacks and have them. So if a kid doesn't have a snack or needs something, they can get that, you know, through their teacher too.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't raise my
Go
hand.
ahead.
So,
Well,
that's
so
because I was
good.
looking for the name. So he gave us the name of a person that works out of UNH Cooperative Extension, Rick Olivia. I've reached out to him. He's comes at no cost, and it's a greater issue than just school. It's a bigger piece. It's parents, it's community, it's a larger piece. The number that's used frequently around kids with trauma is 3 to 4% of your school are kids that have experienced at least one or more trauma incidents. I think the number's probably higher than that. Teachers have a full day. They have full curriculum, but we are emphasizing how important it is to take that minute in the morning to say, how you doing? Because a student that's experienced trauma has no clue how to navigate their way through the day unless they know that they've got someone that's helping them navigate. I was lucky. I was principal of a very small school. My highest enrollment was 55, K to 6. And I was able to greet every kid every morning and give them a hug. I know I wasn't supposed to, but it was Jackson, and you know, Jackson's kind of huggy. It's so important and so good for kids to get that. So I think we're all emphasizing that with teachers all the time. Like, take the time. We don't have time not to take the time.
Sandy?
I know that while I worked here, I served several teachers, especially in the lower grades, that would be standing at their doorways here and greeting every child as they came in, asking what they want for lunch and seeing how their morning was going. So we are doing that. It'd be nice to see it. I don't know if it happens as much as the upper grades, but I know at the lower grades it really does.
I didn't have oatmeal in my one-room schoolhouse, though. Cheerios. I think the only other thing I talked about was, so we just learned a week and a half ago that the DOE is offering a competitive grant. I think it's $250,000 total for math and for developing areas of student improvement in math. So we are working quickly and actively on that to try to get something. The application's due April 12th. Jen's already sent surveys out to teachers to see what they need, and we'll be sitting down soon to get that grant out, and hopefully we'll get some
Excellent.
side of that money.
Excellent.
Actually, it's April 9th. I'm looking- Yeah.
Hey, Rob.
On that, is there a identifiable strings attached?
There's no strings attached, but there's 5, I knew. How did I not know you'd ask that question, Ralph? There, I think, are 5 different areas. Do you know the 5?
There were, I'm just pulling it up now, I think there are 4 areas. Just give me a second, sorry.
Well, it's a very good question.
Yeah, it is a good question.
It
And,
is.
From what I can tell, I don't see strings attached, other than we need to be able to show. We need to be able to show that we're making improvement in math, and that's a goal of our school,
Excellent.
so.
So the 4 are improve arithmetic and mathematical instruction using evidence-based practices, develop mastery of knowledge and application of the standards of mathematical practices, and the 8 mathematical teaching practices, develop mastery of arithmetic and mathematical learning progressions, and then develop mastery of multiple means of representing arithmetic and mathematical, including the use of manipulatives. So those are the 4 areas.
This one string that is attached is that the money, if funded, the money has to be spent by September of 2019. So this will be summer professional development that we're offering.
That's what I was gonna ask, is it for all education, special, regular, is it for school-wide?
Yes.
Yep.
Nice.
Those that need a challenge as much as those that are challenged. I didn't have a chance to do a financial status of our federal grant, so I'll do that at on my next report. We are having an audit, that's April 9th. April 12th is, we're having a grant audit on our Title II FY 17-18 grant on the 9th. Thankfully say that I didn't write that grant, but I'll be there to make sure we have everything in place, and I'll let you know the findings of that. We have decreased our special ed numbers by 2, but I can tell you today I found out that one of our district students graduated
Nice.
early.
Congratulations
So
to
that's a
them.
good thing. Good for her and good for us. And the total number of 504 plans that we currently have are 24.
Those would be in school?
Yes.
504 is in school.
That's policy.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Since we're talking about grants, I'm sorry if I could just jump back once. The E-rate is ready to go?
Yeah, as I had said, they closed the window for filing on March. Once the window was closed, they could file for the reimbursement, and it's in process now.
Okay, so we met all the deadlines.
We met the deadlines long ago.
Okay, that was what I thought it meant, but I
Yep.
wanted to make sure. Okay,
Absolutely.
thanks.
Is that it? Thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you. Not here yet, huh?
Sorry.
All right. Hold off on that.
Stuck in traffic.
Old business, resource officer.
Just wanted to let you know, I included in here a job description and the memorandum of understanding between ourselves and the police department. You got an updated version of that MOU as it was changed, and it was signed. We signed that last week. So you got the updated in your packet, or outside of your packet. And the SRO, Officer Dave Landry, started with us on April 1st.
Oh,
And
good.
He got a chance to go through all the classrooms yesterday, and well received, and he's pretty excited to be here.
Does that mean he's here through the rest of the year, and then right away, beginning of the year next year, he's here?
That's the way we understand it, yes.
Okay.
There will be some times where he is going out for a SRO training for a week, because that will happen here at the end of the month.
I thought you were gonna say a donut.
So you have the MOU, and you have the job description. Any questions about that?
Jim, did you have something?
So
I couldn't help it.
on April 1st, we went around to each classroom. We got to all of them but one, and I was told you went to that final classroom today. But we said there were two reasons for us visiting the classroom. One, so they could be introduced to Officer Landry and not only know who he was, but see him, hear him, and know who he is. And we said 2, as an opportunity for any students to ask him questions. And the questions ranged all across the board, which was great. So there were some laughs because there was like some donuts and Dunkin' Donut questions. But then it got real and it got deep because the elephant in the room are the school shooting threats or the the unfortunate fear that, you know, that where the time that we live in right now. So he addressed all of that, and I thought he did a really nice job with it.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Jen.
So this is police related more than school, but it happened at school. The rec put on superhero training, and 3 Wakefield officers came. It happened in the gym. Came and helped the little kid superheroes that went take away the candy bandit. And I think it was a fantastic interface with the police and the little kids. You know, it couldn't have gone better. So just, I know it's not totally school, but
Kudos to the
it's a
rec.
really good thing to have them in the school and have it be a good thing for the little ones.
Sure.
Be a nice community connection.
It was.
It's gonna be.
All set on that one, right?
Yes.
Wakefield scholarship.
You want to do the Wakefield School students first?
Where am I? I'm sorry,
AB,
yes,
yeah.
students, Wakefield.
So on
students.
page 40 of your packet, you have a list of students who are currently attending Kingswood Regional High School.
40?
On page 40, yes, sir.
I only got 30 pages. Oh, maybe not. What if I do that?
Okay.
That's awesome.
So each year, you just have to reaffirm that those students are looking for an approval for the students in grades 9 through 11 as listed on page 40. We don't need to name them. I would just say the students starting at the top from 9 to the last student on page 11, on number 11.
How many kids are in 12th grade this year and leaving?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Just 2?
Thank you.
Oh, that doesn't open much for next year, huh?
Well, that's what the lottery was back in January. The U poll was for
Oh,
just 2.
okay, right, okay, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so Jerry, how do you want to do this?
So I would just, what I would do is motion to accept the students in grades 9 through 11 that are listed on page 40 on the reaffirmation.
When do we know that they want to continue there?
Once we get the approval here from you to reaffirm, we will send that documentation over to Kingswood. Kingswood will contact the parents.
I'll make Jerry's motion in order to have discussion on it.
Second it.
Sorry.
Motion a second, discussion, please?
So this represents 10% of the student population for high school, 16 students?
This represents, I believe, we could talk about is that 10%, and then you'll have 2. You have 2 that are graduating, and that would represent that 10%.
So
Because you have 2 more that have already been approved through the lottery that was held in January. And so those 2 added to this would be that 10%.
So it'd be 18.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was adding in my head, I spoke out loud.
No, so we have 180 high school students now?
180, I believe. I'd have to double check that to be sure to give you a quote, but it's based on 10%, so I would have to take a look at that to give you an exact number.
I just want to make sure we don't get in trouble with Rochester.
We will not. We are, again, this number is, I can take away the 2 that are graduating, as Larissa just pointed out. We have the 2 in that we have that were approved in the lottery program, and that would give you your 10%.
Do you watch for extra enrollment so that it might open up another spot for another kid? Like-
I haven't, that's not been my role, and I wouldn't have thought to do that actually. I certainly can.
Yeah,
We can take a look at.
We had like 9 kids who wanted to go, right? And only 2 that got to?
We've had increased lottery participation,
Right.
in the last 3 years,
Mhm.
more so than we had when I first started.
Right, so it might be a good
Yeah.
idea to just watch and see if our numbers
We
go up at all.
certainly
We
can.
could,
Yep.
I think we budgeted for 186.
186.
I think so.
Any other questions, comments? I have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bob, on the old business, can I add one thing under that?
Sure. What is it, Ralph?
During the committee nominations and stuff, the negotiations team was appointed, but there's also a separate committee regarding the health insurance contract, or the health insurance. Was that, according to here, before May 1st of this year, it's supposed to consist of 6 members, 3 appointed by the association, 3 appointed by the school board. Is that committee already full? Is there an opening there for a board member to sit on?
I have not put together a committee. Teresa?
Just a thought, where some of this was going is since the negotiating committee has to know what's going on with the Insurance, that was the proposed idea previously. I don't know if somebody wants to change it or whatever, but that was because you're so involved with the negotiating, but, I don't care. Can we do 3 of us? I mean.
What, no, he's just talking about for the insurance,
For the insurance.
right?
Insurance, yeah, I mean, from what I understand, it's supposed to be a separate group, and they're supposed to just go over, you know, what the union wants or hopes for, and what the district wants or hopes for.
And that's now, like, or ongoing, not necessarily related to contracts, right? I mean,
Well, it just says the committee shall begin meeting no later than May 1st. So I thought it was important to discuss it tonight.
Sandy, you got a question?
It's more of a comment. If we have 3 on the committee, it becomes a quorum.
Yeah, we can't have.
but it's separate, isn't that what he's saying?
It's still
I'm not gonna
quorums.
be there for the health insurance thing.
Well, the
I
mem-
thought it was
the members don't have to be school board members. It just says 3 appointed members of the committee that are appointed by the school board. It could be 3 residents, but I think it's something the board should consider tonight. And again, I would volunteer to be on that.
Rob, you want to be volunteer on that? Tracy, and then.
Sure.
We need a 3rd though, right?
No, you can't have a third.
No, not a 3rd school board member, I mean a 3rd member.
Jerry.
Huh?
Could be Jerry.
Marie, how about if Marie and I put together a plan on that, and,
All right.
well, it's gonna be Tracy and Ralph, is that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we'll have that put together for our next meeting.
Is that, you all set, Ralph, with that?
I'm just wondering if I wouldn't think it'd be an administrative, but, you know, I might be wrong too, so you folks would know the cans and can'ts about that. Right. Thank you.
Do we need to vote on it?
Well, we don't need
No,
to
you
vote
don't
on
have
that.
to vote on it. We'll look at what the past practice has been as well, if there has been.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Chris is here.
Chris is here. Want to jump Chris in here?
Sure.
All right, so the cafe services. Chris.
Did you catch your breath?
I did.
How's it driving out?
Actually, I thought
How's it driving out there?
495 is always so much fun.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I really don't have to catch my breath after sitting in traffic forever.
That's fine.
So, thank you for being patient and giving me the time to get
This
here.
is Chris Farrell from
My name-
Cafe
yeah,
Services.
My name is Chris Farrell. I am the Director of Business Development for Cafe Services, actually Fresh Fix Cafe. Come on. Lynette Bouldry is the district manager that works with your program. We want to give you an update of kind of some of the stuff that's gone on this year and that kind of stuff. And then I believe there's a couple of questions the board had that I'll be able to address for you. So, Lynette, you want to talk about some of the stuff that we've done with the program this year?
Yeah, I know you had touched on some a little bit earlier in the meeting, so I think that things have gone a lot better. We're definitely making some improvements. Speed of the kids moving through the line has definitely improved. We've had some staff change. We have a new manager on site here who started the beginning of March. She's, sorry, I don't mean to, fantastic culinarian and is really kind of coming into her own with this position. We've had a lot of corporate support come and do some training with her. She's been with us for a year at a different account, but we wanted to kind of give her a chance to run her own account. So she's been doing a great job. I know she's added some additional options for the middle school kids because the regulations state that we can offer them different items than the little ones can get. So she's incorporated some more of those things. We did take away a salad bar, only because that kind of held us up. We had to have somebody manning the salad bar because it kind of became a mess with the little ones kind of serving themselves and for sanitation reasons. So we kind of took that back, but we're making individualized salads and salads to order for our staff that they can call ahead and take those to go. So we're able to offer a lot more
Great idea.
Only
deli options.
If I can jump in on that, locations, we've had a lot of locations that have wanted a salad bar. And where we have the space, we've done a salad bar and our grab-and-go Market Fresh program, which is the salads and the lunch boxes and all of that kind of stuff. Every place we have both, we actually sell more of the pre-packaged salads than the salad bar.
Yes.
Very popular with the kids, they can just grab it and go, it makes it nice and quick for them. Definitely cuts down on waste, and when you're talking about the elementary level, there's definitely a sanitation consideration with that.
Did she say it was just for staff though?
No.
Oh, it's for everybody?
So we actually, we created and are starting tomorrow, a separate staff menu.
Okay.
That gives them the option of calling ahead, because we know teachers are very busy, they don't have very much time to wait in line if they have to, or place an order and get something made. So we created a call ahead menu that includes salads, options, sandwich options, a few different things. The kids can also have the pre-made salads. That's not, they can have stuff added to it if they don't like necessarily what's on it. But we're really trying to speed things up, because we know we have one lunch that's very big, and that was kind of causing us some backup. We're now trying to kind of streamline and say, this is where you grab your salad, this is where you can grab this is where, so that they can kind of go right to where they need to be to speed it up, so that they have more time to eat. We don't want them to be rushed.
Great. So I know one of the questions that I was brought here to answer and talk about was, I guess there was a question about donating leftovers to a food pantry or something of that nature. So really, I mean, when you look at a program of your size and the fact that the kids pre-order in the morning, so we have a pretty good idea of what we're gonna have for entrees and that kind of stuff, there's really not a lot of leftovers after any given lunch. A lot of that stuff as well, when it's handled properly, can be held and reused, just like you do at home. I mean, professional kitchens are experts at using leftovers. So there's really not a lot of leftovers at the end of any given day that would be waste. And we did look into, we have talked to some companies because there are companies out there that will do pickups at restaurants and schools and that kind of stuff, and transport foods to food pantries. We wound up really not doing anything with any of those type of organizations, because for smaller programs, especially something of this size, there'd actually be a charge to do it. And in terms of doing it ourselves, the food pantry in Wakefield is only open on Wednesdays. So that would really kind of make it difficult to do anything with that.
My larger concern was the idea of students leaving at the end of the day, and, the amount of waste or food thrown out that could be, maybe put in a paper bag, given to the student that would, that could use it at home. I thought it was more important that if there are issues where families aren't providing after school's closed,
Yeah.
And there's a group of kids that are unfortunate enough to need that kind of
Yes.
sustenance.
Yeah.
Couldn't we find a way to make sure that those students are sent home with a little something extra?
So there's a few things there, and there are some things we can do, there are some things that the school could do that we couldn't do, and I'll get into that. So in terms of, providing a bag or something for those kids to take their leftovers home, we could definitely provide some of that kind of stuff. We probably want some type of adult oversight to make sure that they're not taking home something that's gonna get them sick 6 hours later. But that's definitely an option. Another option that I can suggest, and we're on TV, so I'll be very careful with my wording, but we can't really help with, is the concept of a share table. I don't know if there's a share table in place in school. USDA actually recommends food service programs, school food service programs, doing share tables. In Vermont, we actually run share tables for the schools. In New Hampshire, the Department of Health and Services does not agree with food service being involved in share tables. The school could do it on their own, but the way the food code works, once we've served food, that is out of our hands and we can have nothing to do with it. So there are a lot of schools, even in New Hampshire, that do run share tables, so if the kids are taking an apple or that kind of stuff that they're required to take to get that full meal and they don't want it, they can put it in that share table to have it shared. So there's ideas like that that could help. And then also too, is there a backpack program in place in the school, do you know?
Like a snow
There is.
snowpack?
No,
And like an
there is.
68 hours hunger?
There is not the 68 hours, is it 68 hours of hunger?
So N68 Hours of Hunger is a non-profit organization that actually
Right.
started in the Somersworth area.
Yeah.
And what they do is they provide basically the guidance and some administrative support for their program that they call N68 Hours of Hunger. The 68 hours refers to that time period of time between Friday lunch at school and Monday breakfast at school. And, you know, volunteers get donations, food donations from different organizations. They get that all together. Volunteers set up the backpacks that the kids can grab on the way out of school on the end of Friday, so they have stuff to go home over the weekend. That's one of those things. There's a few different school districts where we've partnered with the school districts, because to do an official N68 Hours of Hunger program, you need 2 program coordinators. One manages the finances, one manages the logistical aspect. Our food service directors are the perfect program coordinator to help manage that logistical aspect. And if you wanted to look at something like that, we could work with Rochelle. Did I get the name right? Rachel.
It looks like Rachel.
Yeah. To, you know, help her be that program coordinator for part of that. And then we would just need to find community volunteers to start a program like that as well.
I think it's a good example of, if students who aren't in need of that kind of help observe other students who do, you know, I think it kind of teaches the idea of, you know, helping your fellow students, or compassion, you know,
Absolutely.
to make sure that they're going home and have some sort of nutrition.
Absolutely.
Chris, you know, in Somersworth, I recall, in the summertime, we would have so many lunches made up, and kids could come in and pick up a lunch at school during the
Mhm.
summertime.
Yep.
What goes, what's the process for that?
So, Somersworth at that time, at that time it was done through the schools, and Cafe Services managed it for a little while. Somersworth has a summer food service program in place. And it's a USDA-funded program where the USDA gives a reimbursement for those meals just like they do with the school year. And Somersworth had sites that qualified for open enrollment based on Hilltop. Because of the free and reduced enrollment at Hilltop, there were certain sites where any child under the age of 18 in Somersworth could go to those sites and get a meal. So, now, this school wouldn't have quite high enough free and reduced population to qualify for that. If there were certain programs going on in the summer that had a higher free and reduced percentage, you might be able to do something like that. As far as financial viability, we have some summer programs that would be as small as this one. I'm thinking of specifically Rumney, New Hampshire. That school's actually about 180 kids, and they have a summer program, and that summer program is pretty much level funded. In this area, we don't do the Somersworth summer program anymore because Stratford County CAP has taken over all the summer programs down in that area. And it's definitely something you could look into here too, is seeing if CAP has the resources, has any way to help do a summer program. And I can actually help with that as well, not just on a professional level, but the person who runs Stratford County CAP plays baseball on the same teams as my son, so I can help with that as well.
It's always
We're
good to
not
have-
Stratford
Tracy?
County Cap, we're Tri-County Cap.
Oh, you're Tri-County. Okay.
But
I don't
can
know
look
anybody
into
over
that.
there.
Tracy?
The Wakefield Food Pantry actually does have a grant in the summer.
Oh, great.
For, they give out $25 gift cards once a week per child that's on the free or reduced lunch.
Oh, wow.
What are the
That's
controls?
great.
I'll ask you afterwards. No, but to make sure it's spent on the kids and food.
We have a deal with Level Lake, which is where they are spent and what they are allowed to spend it on and what they're not allowed to spend it on.
Fantastic.
Ralph?
I'm sorry, before you, just along that path, so if there are any programs in the school or in the area where we might be able to qualify it with enough students or children who qualify, I can definitely help you with the logistics of looking into creating a small program.
Sorry.
Look into it.
So,
Nice.
I did a little research back in the fall, and I did notice, and it alarmed me somewhat, that it seemed like the schools with the larger percentages of free and reduced meals have a lower level of academic achievement. And I'm curious, is there an explanation for that? I mean, is it something that is a coinky-dink, or is it something that
I mean, the free and reduced, the meal benefit part of it, I can speak about that all day. The correlation to academic performance, I'm really not qualified.
if you look into it, you would be alarmed? I think it's
Oh,
interesting.
I'm sure it is, and I don't doubt what you're saying. The reasons why, I don't have the expertise.
I was, again, without the reasons why, Mr. Fogg, you are tying Title I services and free and reduced lunch very closely together. And so that's that's how we determine our Title I and free and reduced, is match them, the two together.
So,
But for the reasons behind that, that's deeper than what it
well,
goes
I mean,
right here and
I
now.
would hate to have a push for larger numbers in one area in order to gain more federal
It's not a
money.
push, it's a cause and effect. But what's the cause and effect? What's the cause of that? You could assume that there are some restrictions for kids at home based on finances that are available in the home.
All right. I
But it's
see.
not a push.
I see.
And I can tell you too, along that lines in terms of, the number of students you have that qualify. I don't know correlations, all of that kind of stuff. I do know, I see it a little less in this area than some other areas like around Kingston, New Hampshire, and up around Gorham, especially around Gorham. The Gorham School District has one of the lowest free and reduced populations out of all the schools we serve. It's pride. Obviously there's a need up in the Gorham area. They're struggling every year to find industry to keep employed with. And sometimes it's just a pride thing. So, getting those numbers up and doing any outreach for that doesn't necessarily correlate to, reduced academic performance or anything. Sometimes it's just getting people to realize the benefits that are available to them.
Mr. Fogg, also, draw attention to our lunch debt that we have, where people who have not paid their lunch debt in the entire school year, who have not applied for free and reduced lunch, and we encourage them to do so. And the principal has the ability, and I have done it, to sign people up for free and reduced lunch without consent, because they're not paying the bill, and we know there's a financial need.
Yeah, and those people, sometimes it's those people that that would qualify and don't enroll or right on that edge that are the biggest drivers behind your negative balance problem.
And so we find that same pride thing, here in town. Yeah. It's hard, and I get it.
Thank you. So were there other questions specific questions that you were looking for us to address, or, yes?
So I have a student,
Okay.
and I'll have another one next year. Good luck. So we came in a couple times last year to sample the food. There's a general dissatisfaction with the quality. It was okay when we came in. I think I came in 3 times myself. What do you do for that? How do you make sure that you're meeting, like, the kids want to eat what you have? Because I've got a kid who comes in and she spends her $3 every day, but I don't think she eats much of it. I actually send her a lunch to eat before lunch.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
she eats hot lunch too, sort of.
Okay, yeah. So, what we do about that, and, I'll let Lynette chime in with some of this stuff, but one is try and find out what the kids are interested in.
Do you do surveys and stuff? Have you been doing it?
Yeah, I haven't seen the most recent survey. I know for a while here, we were on a really good roll in this school in particular, where the computer science teacher was helping us out and had all the kids in school doing it online, and for a few years running, we had some great solid data. I don't know if that's still going But, I mean, it's surveys, but it's also too, just people like Rachel talking to the kids and finding out what they like and they don't like. You know, there are some obstacles to what kids would consider good food that the USDA is finally rolling back a little bit.
Yeah.
Next year, the program will have to only offer whole grain products. We'll be able to offer some white products as well.
Okay.
Which, you know, on days like pasta day are gonna be huge.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I've been to Italy and you don't see whole wheat pasta there. You know, so there's some stuff like that coming down the pipe as well.
Well, what about portions when you talk about federal stuff? I mean, a bunch of kids say they just don't get enough.
So the federal guidelines, and I actually had a conversation with someone from the USDA right after they made these changes in 2011, 2012 is when it actually took effect. The federal guidelines for the portions are specifically made to force kids to eat fruits and vegetables. So when you look at, you know, if you look at the high school level, what we're required to put on the tray is 2 ounces of protein. So basically like half a quarter pound. 2 ounces of whole grain bread, brown rice, whatever it is. At the high school level, a full cup of fruit, a full cup of vegetables. So if you eat that little entree of 2 ounces of meat and 2 ounces of grain with that full cup of fruit and full cup of vegetable, that's not a, you know, it's a fairly significant meal. The kids don't really want the fruit and the vegetable. They want the bigger meat. They want, you know, more grains. They want a nice big pile of pasta.
Right.
So that is some of the challenge with it.
And isn't there I mean, we talked last year when we were talking about there's a difference between what the kids in 7th and 8th grade should be getting, what the younger kids are getting. And I don't think at that time they were. I don't think they were getting more at that time. They paid more.
Mhm.
But I think it was kind of an eyebrow raiser.
Yeah.
I
So,
think it was cleared up, though.
I want to make sure they think so too.
again, I'm on TV, so I'll watch how I say this. But so in a K
Nobody
through
watches.
8 building such as this, there's actually kind of an overlap meal pattern. So, you know, the USDA breaks it down K through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12. And those are 3 different requirements for portion sizes. There is an optional K through 8, which saves a ton of paperwork. And it's based on kind of a blend of both of those. So technically, we're supposed to give every kid that comes through the same size portion, whether they're this big or this big. What we try and teach our staff to do is have common sense, and if you have a kid coming through that's this big, don't give him as much as the kid that's this big. Give more to this guy.
Do the kids that are this big pay the same as the kids that are this big? I thought it was a different price.
I believe you have tiered pricing, right? You have
So if it's tiered
different
pricing,
prices
shouldn't
for-
it be tiered? I don't really care about the paperwork. I want the kids to have full stomachs when they're learning and.
So, and I know at the time last year, and I believe with Rachel, there's been that exact training where, hey, you know, the 7th and 8th graders are bigger. Don't be afraid to be, you know, give them a little more generous portion. Don't be giving a cup of vegetables to a kid that's this big, because they're not gonna eat.
Okay.
Yeah, we have really kind of put that in with the new training with Rachel. You know, we did find some issues with our last leader, site lead here, and which is why we have a new manager in place. So we're really taking these things that we're hearing. You know, Marie has brought some items to our attention, and we're really making sure that we're doing the training and making those changes and you know, moving forward the program and having some more choices, and don't want kids leaving hungry at all.
As a mom, I can tell you, and having been there, that Danielle does a great job knowing each and every kid, who they are, what their account number is. So, yeah, she's really good.
wonderful. Yes, so please come try again. I mean, Rachel she really is a great
I'll take a day off. Feeling
And
sick face.
overall participation in the lunch program is fairly strong.
Okay.
And it has increased since Rachel has started.
Yep. Yep.
You know,
We were just looking at the numbers, and it was up year over year for January. It's up by about 6%. That much.
Which is a lot in a small school.
Absolutely. So,
Good. What's the deal with for a while they did juice. And now they don't do it anymore. Like, was it like 5 years ago or so? Were you here? There was like a juice offered. Yeah, now it's just milk and, right? Just milk.
Juice offering at
Here,
lunch?
remember they had the older kids could get one kind of drink and the younger kids got a different kind of drink.
That
and-
might have been, that was a long time ago, yeah.
Oh, before that? Before that?
I think that might have been when we were on our own.
Oh, okay.
Before
It was a
the
good
cafe
idea.
services.
Is that ever a possibility?
I'm trying to remember.
Because, you know, you don't want them drinking the town water.
I think at one point in time, and I think this was kind of more towards the beginning of when we got here, we talked about doing additional à la carte offerings for the older kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember exactly why. I think it was a school district decision
Okay.
to not,
Not do that?
those different offerings.
Okay.
Because one of the things you have to remember with the relationship with a contracted service like this.
Yep.
And one of the things that I did want to touch on tonight, is that, it's our job, you contract us to run the food service program the community wants to see. So, if the community 5 years ago said, you know what, we don't want you to offer, different beverages to the older kids, cut out the à la carte, that's what we do.
Okay.
If the community now comes to us and says, hey, can we offer different beverages to à la carte, I mean, obviously, we'd have to involve your wellness committee, administration, all of that, to make sure everybody's on board. But if you want that,
It's an
that's what
option.
we would do.
Okay.
Jen, I think we were talking, we had gosh.
It was different drinks
Way
that
back.
older kids could have.
Jen, you recall this, that there was a cooler in the back corner down by the back door?
Yeah,
That held drinks, and I forget,
vaguely.
yeah,
Yes, I
and,
did.
again, it was, I think
Kate
that
was here,
back-
so it wasn't that long.
5 years anyway.
So are you talking about a vending machine? Because I remember there
It
was.
wasn't a vending machine, it was a cooler that the kids could say, I'm gonna buy, and I forget the drink that was in, it was kind of like a carbonated juice, if I remember
Couldn't have been
correctly.
carbonated.
I believe it was, and it came in a can, and.
Yeah,
they-
might have been
and-
like a switch or something like that.
I think, something like that, yeah, it was, but I think we did away with that, that was when we made the switch to cafe service, so I think it's been 5 years now.
One of the other things that could be with that too is my lovely friends from the USDA. When they come in a K through 8 school like this, sometimes they will be very prickly about how that's being managed to make sure that little kids can't get it. I know, actually, one of the school districts we work with is Linwood, which is K through 12, all in the same building. And to be able to offer the beverages we can offer to high schoolers under regulations, we have to keep them in a completely separate cooler. We have to demonstrate that it's locked and covered up
Gosh.
when the littler kids come. Yeah.
What are they putting in the
This was,
juice?
this was, and when we had this was
And that's
a
the
locked
thing, it's only
cooler.
juice and diet, like iced tea and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of, things that we used to have that were good. And, I know that Kate would drink a smoothie, and I'd rather have her do that than nothing. I know a couple of the kids drink smoothies and,
And actually, smoothies, I don't know if it's made it here yet, but it's that Market Fresh program that I talked about, which is the prepackaged salads and the
Yep.
lunchbox and that kind of stuff. We are rolling out a smoothie concept with that as well. So
that will be a
I
hit.
don't know if it's made it here yet, but we're.
That'll be a hit.
Not yet.
Yeah.
It's still kind of hovering around the Dover area.
Let's
Yeah.
push it north.
My northern section is a little,
The culinary team, worked out the logistics of it to do them on mass scale and has started going around, providing equipment and training to districts as they had the chance, and they just haven't made it up here yet.
Tracy?
Thank you for explaining this, for coming up here and explaining it to this board, because we haven't always understood why there are small little portions of the hamburger, or why now we know that it's K through 8, that's why there's the split for food. We appreciate now, we'll understand that there should be a little more for the 7th and 8th graders, which none of this. And explaining to us, it helps us make better decisions.
Yep, absolutely, and we're
Worked for me.
happy to do it. And it's been, maybe not the past couple of years, but since we've been here, it's been a fairly regular basis that, we've come in and talked to the board, and we're always happy to do it. Because it's really that communication piece, like I said, we're here to run the program that you all want us to run. So that feedback and discussion about what's going on not only helps you, but it helps us understand what you want us to do with the programs.
Thank you.
I've seen you before here.
Yep. I've been here, I'm gonna guess I've probably talked to this board probably at least 8 times, if not 10 in the past 5 years.
I'm still new, so
I miss
I'm
you.
not even
Well,
here.
he talked to you and I.
I remember that
And we
Uh,
listened,
I'm sorry?
and we listened.
So are there any other questions for me?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette.
Thanks.
So we're at the end of this. Maybe the end of the business. I'll bring it up then.
On the old business?
I'll bring it up on the other business. For when we're going to meet for committees. If we-
What
I
number?
don't have 57.
You didn't have page
We do have
57?
to
I got a 57.
Ralph didn't have 40, but he's got 57. Okay, you ended
Yeah.
45? I am privileged, I
too.
guess.
Yeah,
Okay,
me too.
so anyway,
Just tell us about it.
I think what's gonna happen, if we don't schedule our committee meetings, they're not gonna happen. And we're gonna come back and say, oh, we haven't had a facilities committee meeting in 4 months. And so what I'd like to do is bring to you a schedule of a monthly meeting at least on our committees. If we decide in the future that we don't need to have a meeting, we can make that decision, but it has to be a conscious decision, not something an afterthought that we should have had. Maybe we would have known this had we had a committee meeting. And I was wondering if that was something the board would entertain.
Sure, sure.
So then I will schedule, so let's say policy, do we want to meet monthly on policy or twice a month?
Or we gotta get back into
Oh,
that
that's-
rhythm again.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you can pick the time.
Well, it needs to be as late as possible for
Yep.
me.
But you want to, we can do that, but do you want to do it twice a month?
To start, maybe?
Yes.
Want to try to set that up?
Yep,
Twice a month?
To start,
Okay.
yeah.
This week, the times we can work out, but I want to start scheduling
sure.
this of how often we want to meet. Twice monthly.
We got a lot to do.
Facilities.
Oh, I thought you were.
I think monthly, Sandy.
Monthly.
Monthly. Okay, I think that would work. Teacher negotiations.
So is it just me and Tracy
Yes.
meeting? So we
When
can
do
we
we-
do that after hours without it being?
Yeah, because it's.
When do you want to start that? When do you want to start talking
So
about this?
I need to be filled in a little bit on when that can start, because my understanding, limited as it is, the contract was declined and the ability to bring it back up was declined. So when do we have the ability to start working on that again? Is there legal ramifications?
I can find out when we can,
Okay.
the earliest, but we're talking about teacher negotiation, not for this coming
see.
school year. You're talking about for the 2021 school
Right,
year.
right.
We're not, so I don't believe there'll be a limitation when you can start talking about it, but let me find out what the timeline is regarding negotiating.
Okay.
Marie?
No,
Oh,
Ralph?
sorry.
I was just gonna point out that the current teacher contract should be discussed with the Teachers Association and find out whether or not what they're currently contracted under is something they would agree to work under until the next opportunity to vote on it next March. You know, if they're happy with that contract and its provisions, we as a board need to make sure that it's done properly with a board vote and.
Aren't our hands tied?
sign anything. Well, no, you're under a current contract.
Right.
I mean, the old contract, I have some concerns about whether it was done properly, but
It didn't
it is
pass.
binding. Pardon me?
The new one didn't pass, so we're working under the old one.
That's right.
And then the old one expires.
But it still
and-
needs to be ratified. You still need to ratify the old contracts for the current year.
Jerry?
That's not my understanding. My understanding is we carry over the contract without steps and without longevity, that the current contract is in effect until a new contract is ratified. So I think if I understand you correctly, you're asking me if we want to consult with the WEA, if they want to continue with this current contract
It
and
needs
with
to be-
steps and longevity removed.
It needs to be properly ratified, is what my major point is, that we need to do the things properly so that the contracts are legally binding on both parties.
But just I want to take one step at a time. So really, we don't need, my understanding is we do not need to do anything under the current contract legally right now, because the contract carries over since the proposed contract that was voted down in March. We nothing left to do. Again, and the discussion has been had with the union regarding not having steps and not having longevity. And you're bringing up a second issue, I believe, that you don't believe that the current contract was legally ratified.
But it can be easily ratified. It can
But
be
that's what I'm saying,
easily
but
ratified.
there are two, one of my point is there are two issues we're talking about. One is that we really don't need to do anything regarding the contract because it's continuing on,
Correct.
minus steps and longevity. The second issue is, your question or concern is about was it legally ratified?
Well, I know that what was done in the past is in the past. All I'm saying is, if the Teachers Association is willing to operate under the current contracts that they're holding, let's find that out, and then let's discuss it and vote on it.
We don't have any options.
Okay, Tracy.
So, the contract that you keep talking about that isn't ratified, we were not a part of.
I
We-
understand.
Which is okay. So what would you like us to do?
Well, it's in effect, okay?
Mhm.
So the contract is in effect by virtue of default,
Mhm.
right? So if the Teachers Association is okay with that, I think we just, as a board, need to say that we need to sign the contracts and vote on it and say, let's.
Just to
in a
maintain it
public-
as frozen as it currently is?
Yeah.
Sandy?
I just had a question. Why do you think it wasn't the current contract that we're working under wasn't ratified?
You've got a long time to sit and listen?
No, no,
Because
no,
I am
that's-
curious.
Well, a number of reasons, but today is today.
Was it not brought forth to the board? Is that what you're saying?
That is, yes,
That's
that's part of it.
That's what I wanted to know.
That's
To the
part of it.
whole board that was there? They didn't bring it to?
There was one point where we had discussed things that needed to be addressed, and then discussions stopped and ceased. And some of the minutes reflect one way, some of the minutes, different representation. The vote was done in non-public, which is not legal to do.
No, it's not, right.
So, there's a number of reasons I'm concerned, but I think the fix is very simple, very, very, very simple.
Jerry?
And speaking with the school district attorney, the contract was ratified legally once the voters voted on it, and that's the legal opinion that I've received. So going back and asking the teachers if they're willing to, there's nothing to be willing to do. This is what the contract they have to operate on, minus steps, minus longevity. The ratification, whether it was not voted on properly here in the board, or it wasn't processed to the budget committee properly, once it's voted on by the voters, it's been ratified, according to the legal
I
opinion.
agree with that,
Yeah.
that part of it, but the voters voted on something that was misrepresented. So you can't have a publicly elected board take action without the publicly elected board involved in that action.
Just say that the opinion of the attorney is that once the voters
agree
vote
with
on it,
that.
whether it was misrepresented, I'm not saying it was, whether it was misrepresented or not, that the voters voting in the affirmative ratifies it.
Sandy Wall?
This happened under another board. I want to agree with Mr. Gregoire that if the legal standing is that it's considered ratified, that from here on it's a moot issue according to me.
If,
Good, Tracy.
things absolutely may have happened. We're not disagreeing with you. I've heard this, and perhaps it was without a doubt done.
I'm not trying to hammer it anymore.
Right, Right, but I think since we're not the board and it is ratified, perhaps it would
But-
be inappropriate for us to vote on it, we weren't there.
We are
Yeah, everything's
kind of
legal.
going off
But,
the agenda.
It is
Okay.
a little bit off the agenda, but the fact remains, new contracts need to be signed by somebody, right?
There is
For
no
the
new
next-
contract.
It's not a multi-year contract, it's a default contract. So in order to go forward, I believe that the board just needs to.
Well, what needs,
Go ahead.
what needs to be signed will be the individual agreements with teachers to continue for their employment. You'll be voting on not renominations here tonight. Those will need to be signed by the chairman. But the contract from last year that will carry over does not need to be signed. It carries over.
Okay, just one more question on this.
Okay,
That's
one more.
the
Could we
legal
just
opinion.
check with Mike Elwell and Peter, and that should solve
No,
it?
not if it costs money. You know?
I will do
I
whatever,
wouldn't, I
whatever the
wouldn't,
board
if it
decides,
costs
I will
money.
certainly,
We
I will
have an
certainly
agreement
call.
where I think 4 to 1 an agreement, I don't wanna spend any money on this.
I'm
I don't
with
care
you.
if it's $50, cause $50 can buy, you know, what, 200 notebooks at Staples that the kids could learn with. I don't wanna waste money.
So how about if I make a motion to ratify the contracts as they are and go forward?
I will abstain. Because I don't think it's
Yeah,
unnecessary.
Can I make that
No.
motion?
Jerry?
Yes.
He isn't-
If you have if you're making a motion, you'd have to have a second.
Okay.
Okay.
I have
Back-
a follow-up on that. I have a
Yes.
follow-up on something, on what, going forward.
Okay.
So the question was, going forward, to open up negotiations again. The NEA as well as the school board just has to put a letter of intent to open up negotiations again. So that has to be done before September 1st. A letter to go
Thank
back
you,
to the
Marie.
table. So that could be done at any time, but it has to be done before September 1st, that the intent to negotiate.
So the
reopen.
vote that didn't allow us, you know, the second part that also got turned down, doesn't limit that?
No, because now you're opening up, now you're
New.
negotiating for
New.
the following,
Okay.
for the following year. This is,
Okay,
the
gotcha.
current contract
That's the
for
difference.
2019-20 is a moot point.
Okay.
With negotiation is gonna be for 2021.
Okay, good.
Right. That's
my
what I was gonna
concern.
say, just like what we did last year with our timeline.
Yeah,
It was the same
that was
thing.
just my concern, was
Yeah.
not stepping on what the voters said to do.
All right,
Oh, okay.
Jerry?
So the next one would be the CIP.
Oh, that would be me.
That would be you, yeah. I had a look for that.
Would you like that to be monthly?
You meeting with
Actually,
yourself?
Sure. I mean, I just come in to see you and Joe and,
Correct, yeah, that would be more of a combination.
Okay.
Her and the other, and you'll notice I've left a few, I left out tech, I left out PD, I left out budget, I leaving out wellness, because those are
Okay.
outside of the
Good.
scope of the board, but committees that you participate in.
I can meet during the day, you know, whenever is convenient for you.
Transportation?
Could I ask to have that at the 4 o'clock, the first meeting of the month? 4 in the afternoon, is that
Which one are you
indeed
talking
the
about?
transportation director's time schedule?
Oh, you're talking transportation?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were still on CIP.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Transportation, would you
I
like
mean,
that monthly
it
as
would-
well?
Just once a month?
Monthly, yep. And you'd like that one, the first meeting of the month?
Yeah. At
4
4
p.m.
if it doesn't
Yeah.
conflict with her schedule.
I will double check and we'll get that all out, we'll get this whole thing out to everybody at the same time.
If it does conflict with her schedule, just have her tell you what time is good, and you can tell me, and I can.
Yeah, I think what we can try to do, Mr. Fogg, is try to schedule to make sure it's when she's here anyway for her transportation update, and we kind of fall right in line with that. And that's a pretty typical thing to happen as well.
Earlier than 4 kind of messes up my work.
Yep, absolutely, we don't want to do that.
Curriculum and assessment, what?
Which one?
Oh, sorry,
Assess- assessment.
put that one in there.
Oh, so, yeah, Jerry
Monthly?
had mentioned, monthly or bi-monthly, and didn't you mention it before, before?
We can,
Yeah, okay.
So what do you want to do, monthly or bi-monthly?
Want to start with by and then go to one?
I think monthly will be fine, quite honestly. I don't think you need to do it bi-monthly. We might start bumping into other meetings.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
well,
They've had them.
but whatever you want. If you want to do it bi-monthly, we can. I'm just saying, I'm not quite sure
Okay.
it's necessary at this
Yep.
point.
We'll see what we.
So what committee are you talking about, Mike, bi-monthly? Bi-monthly?
Curriculum.
Okay.
I will put that schedule together and,
That's it on these, that's all you need on all these?
yes, sir.
For right, until like the end of April, it'd be nice if it could be on the same Tuesday or the same that.
What we're gonna do is to balance them a little bit if we try to do it on the night of a board meeting.
Okay.
That we can balance.
Like we
So
used to
some-
do it.
Yeah, so that one time it'll be facilities, another might be transportation,
Okay.
and just, again, try to balance it somewhat.
Okay.
Okay.
You all set with that, Jerry?
I am, sir.
Oh, did we set one up for, oh, never mind.
Yep, we did, well.
Up for the insurance, but.
So next, I'm proposing a change to the Wakefield School Board scholarship deadline, giving people a little more time. It wouldn't get back to you until May anyway.
So what's the date now?
I
The
believe
deadline
it's
now?
next, what's the 12th?
April 12th.
April 12th. And I'm proposing that the deadline be April 29th. Typically, what we process that, it's gone to the 2 language arts teachers in 7th and 8th grade and an administrator to review them and bring back a recommendation to the board. That's the way we've typically done it. If we did it that way, we would collect them on the 29th, do that process that week, and bring it to the May 7th board meeting.
Did we ever find out what the question was?
Yes.
Can you share that with us?
Larissa, can you share that with us?
Did you ever get back to the mom that was
We
asking?
better know where it was, yeah.
Okay.
I don't have the exact text, but it was something along the lines of, what would you make, what can you do to make the world a better place?
Where do we find that exact text? Is it on the, as the
I can send
101?
it to you. It's on the Wakefield School Board Scholarship application, which I don't have with me. right
Okay, but I can find it on the website then. That's fine, I'll look there.
Tracy?
And we got that from the minutes.
This
Okay.
is, it applies to the scholarship, but it addresses an old issue. One of the recipients said that writing the check directly to the school, what happens is, I think it's a merit scholarship or something like that, say she has a merit scholarship. What happens is, I don't even recall what the scholarship amount is deducted from her scholarship. So she doesn't, and she's concerned that maybe somebody else could use it, because for her, say, just for instance, I'm using numbers, or him, you get $1,000 for a merit scholarship, the check of whatever, $200 reduces the amount that they give for her merit scholarship, so they only give $800. So the net is 0, and she thought perhaps if it could only be written that way, maybe somebody else would appreciate the money, because it obviously,
Can we look into writing it differently? I mean, do we have a problem with the student using it for books
right,
or other
I think
student supplies,
right,
necessities?
books are very, very expensive.
Mhm.
But I just wanted, I don't think the message was understood the first time we heard it. The net to her is
Not a
nothing.
win.
No, and it's wasted,
Yep.
essentially, which is not,
Which is
not,
not the intent.
right, not the intent at all.
Right.
Is there a descriptive intent of the Wakefield School Board Scholarship?
To save some money?
Isn't there already a clear definition of what that scholarship is for, intended to be for?
We can research that.
Yeah, we'll research it.
This is before me being
Yeah.
part of the Wakefield School District, so I don't know what the intent was when it was initially designed.
Probably not to save the college
What's that?
$200.
Larissa?
Folks
Right.
mentioned the question and the application notices on the base page of the SAU 101 website.
Okay, thanks.
Sandy?
My understanding of a scholarship is that when you apply to colleges and you're accepted, you give them a list of the scholarships that you have received, and they take it off of your tuition.
But she's saying that's not what's happening there. The girl who received our scholarship
It's reducing,
got her amount from the college
reduced.
And that's what I'm
reduced.
saying.
So we don't want to do that. We don't want
But
to
that's
throw our
what-
money
but-
away.
But what I'm saying is that when you apply to colleges and you're accepted, I think they ask you what your scholarships are, and they automatically deduct it. So it doesn't come to you.
Well, I think it's something we should look at.
As we can
Right.
research that.
Okay.
Right.
So, we're going to change the date to April 29th.
If that's the will of the board.
Yep.
Everybody have a-
You don't have to
What
vote
do
on
we
just a
vote on?
consensus.
Okay with that, everybody?
What would it?
Changing the date,
To April 29th.
April 29th, the deadline.
Oh, okay, yes, it's fine.
A little more time, yeah, again, you wouldn't get it before then anyway, because of the vacation, the way the vacation falls.
Yep, that's good.
Okay. You were gonna talk about how you wanted to go about a superintendent selection.
Yep, so I sent out an email to all those school board members, just informational, because this came up in the public comment last meeting. And just informational back to me how you want to handle this, because when we get information like this, the reason I did that was, we get information like this is, you know, I want to respond to the public of what they're asking, if we can, at that time. So I sent it out to all you guys, and to email me back separately of how you want to handle it, either a superintendent search or offer it to interim superintendent, Mr. Gregoire. So that's all I sent that for. So, you know, let's have some discussion on this. That's why I sent this, so you guys would be prepared for this. Anybody have any comments? Tracy?
I did a lot of research. New Hampshire School Board Association has been invaluable. Will Phillips filled me with all kinds of information. My takeaway points were from the New Hampshire School Board is April is very late to start a selection process. There's not a lot left in our hiring pool. It's not a lot of time. It's expensive. The best candidates are probably taken.
Ouch.
Should I keep going? Do you want me to keep
Yeah, go
going?
ahead.
Okay.
I take no offense.
It's expensive. The interim, the new guy needs to be tried out. We've had, I feel that there hasn't been continuity. We've had, I don't know, I've heard 5 superintendents in 7 years. I'm not sure if that number is correct, but we've had a lot. So we, and our current interim has a relationship with current staff, current students, and the community. And we all know how it's been for the last year, and for me, almost 2 years. So for me, it's nice to see things settle down and just run well. That would be my contribution.
Sandy?
The one between two rows.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ralph, you have any?
I'm sorry, I did have my hand up. I found that email to be somewhat illegal. It's not for anybody on any public board to seek direction via email.
I don't think it was directions at
It
all.
was. It specifically asked the question. So I brought this to the chief of police, and he shares my opinion that it probably should not have been done that way. You probably
I
should have
disagree,
just.
I disagree with that.
Well, he's also an attorney, and his legal opinion is that it should not have been done that way. You were seeking direction
No, I don't think
from
so.
the board members. We can get through this. We can get through this. Just what it does smack of is, you know, what raises the question is this business as usual? For me, I have a huge problem with people making decisions over email, or people asking for the direction to seek over email. It's not what this board should be doing. Not only that, there's a number of other things. We heard for months and months how this district was operating on a shoestring budget. What you've appropriated for a superintendent position without health insurance is $80,000 a year. Is our interim prepared to accept that as a part-time thing? Are we following the withdrawal plan? I understand, Bob, you know, I heard you say, we're promising to follow the withdrawal plan.
I never said that.
It's part of the record. It was a unanimous vote when it all
Well,
happened.
Honestly, Ralph, the withdrawal plan is not working, and the current board here is seeing that.
Where's the
over
money
last-
coming from?
Let's address one thing at a time. So it's not working, so the current board have seen this. So, you know, it's a
You need-
situation where the board changes, things do change. There's nothing we can do about that.
But the vote of the people has not
I
changed.
absolutely, but
Until
the-
you put it to the people, you might want to reconsider your position.
Even the prior superintendent said to us,
You didn't listen.
no, I'm just saying, said to us, this cannot be successful as a part-time job.
It was
She
not.
could not get her job done in a part-time capacity. And she often said to us, in order to make this work, you're going to have to go to a full-time superintendent, which would exclude her from the job.
And we saw struggles too.
We saw the struggles.
we
We
saw.
lived the struggles.
Mhm.
And sometimes you can't just say, well, this is what we intended to do, so we're gonna stick with it, and we're gonna cheat the kids out of it, and we're gonna do this. We have a budget, and we have to finagle, but we have to do what's right for the kids and the taxpayers, but the kids at the school. And we lived through it, and we had an educated, very smart woman in that position who agreed with us that it was not a way to run a successful school.
That's what she
So we
thought.
have to move on.
She advised us that this was not
Possible.
working. Right, and it was clearly, I mean, all the effort and work that was put into a transition is applauded, and we're handed it, and it wasn't working. Square peg in a round hole. Right off the get-go, things were missed.
Sandy?
Well, I was involved with as a citizen, with the withdrawals and the pre-withdrawal looking. And my understanding, this is not from the people that were on the committees, but my understanding of what I know about plans are meant to change as needs need to be changed. And that's what we're doing. It's not that plan is set in stone forever. Plans are what you start with, and as your needs change, your plan changes and your vision changes, and that's where we're going.
The Department of Education reviewed the plans. The voters in the town of Wakefield reviewed and voted on the plans. The Department of Education approved the plans. And we all, in our day, assured the voting public that this was the plan we were going to apply and run with.
Absolutely, Ralph, I understand that, but like they said, things change.
I'm glad that you listened to something the superintendent said, and I'm not against your nominee. I'm against the process, and I'm against the idea that you can just say, without any kind of legislative action, legislative body action, we're the board representing the people. If we're not going to consider what the people have already said to us, what good are we doing representing the people?
I don't know which one was first.
Sandy.
Somebody was.
Yeah. Yes, it was voted in by the voters. However, it only passed by 72 votes.
Good. Tracy.
First thing that happens when I'm on the board is the buses. We stopped school, the transition agreement didn't work, there were no buses, there were no drivers, there were, the
We had
first
plenty of
thing,
buses.
I don't know.
No,
I don't
nobody to
know.
drive 'em.
I don't want the history, I don't wanna know, but things sometimes don't work out as planned, and those of us that inherit the situation now have to deal with it. And we did. We did. It didn't work.
Via email.
But it didn't, I don't think so, but I don't think, we don't do email crap like that. I mean, I
Well,
knew
there
enough
you
about,
go.
I knew
Here you
enough,
go.
I knew
There
enough
you
to
go.
do
Under
my,
correspondence.
I knew enough to do my research, that's all I got out of that, but go ahead.
Is any part, and I'm asking you because I don't know the answer to this, were any specific parts of the transition agreement specific? Is there any one part that is legally binding and can never be changed? Was it specified? Because I voted for it, but I don't remember saying, I'm only voting for this because the superintendent's gonna be part-time. I voted for it because it was a successful maneuver away from the Milton School, where the money wasn't getting spread evenly, things weren't successful. So we moved our school. Yes, we are representing the voters, but you lose sight already that we are representing the children too. That's what
That's
the
the
school
first
board
one.
is. The school
Yes.
board is using the taxpayer dollars in an intelligent manner to get our kids what they need. It's not about anything else. We're not colluding. I don't see these people any other place but here. Tracy and I negotiated contracts. It's the only thing I've ever seen her for. Never seen her, never see him.
So answer the question.
We don't collude.
How does this diversion from the transition and the withdrawal plan increase academic achievement?
Because it was unsuccessful. The superintendent that you guys chose told us she couldn't get the job done in a limited capacity like that. The SAU was not succeeding.
No.
And no matter what our issues were and what happened, she's an extremely intelligent woman. And she said to us, this isn't successful, we can't do this. And we experienced that last year. And we are trying, every time we come here, every time we read something, every time we look into this, we're trying to get our kids a good education. And I'm a taxpayer, Ralph. I don't want my taxes to go sky high. I want my dollars to make the kids in this town, not just my kid, but the other kids, have a chance to do what they need to do.
Tell me how this change is going to create that chance.
Because he's going, if it's him or if it's somebody else in a full-time position, whether it's Jerry or Bob down the
You
road,
might want to read that.
full-time. Because just because there's 400 kids doesn't mean he doesn't have to do all those things for those 400 kids. There's still all the things the superintendent does. He still has to do them whether it's 800 kids or 400 kids. And we need to do it successfully.
Oh, he does.
Well, you can read it first.
I just might want to read the request, anyone?
All right.
Dated April 2nd,
I'll do it.
2019, to the
Wait,
Wakefield
Ralph.
School Board, right
Ralph,
here.
Ralph, they asked me to read it. Okay.
I wrote it.
Okay. Wakefield School Board, this is addressed to Wakefield School Board, April 2nd. Wakefield School Board, pursuant to the state open records law, New Hampshire Revenue Stat ANNSEC 91-A1 to 91-A9, I write to request the access of, to, and copies of, 1, all emailed communications between all members of Wakefield School Board since March election of 2018, including each email sent to and or received from staff administrators as well as from vendors and other service providers up until this date, and each subsequent email within the same parties after this date. Number 2, any and all corrective actions proposed or taken to address violations of law that have been discovered through research of all email correspondence as requested. As provided by the open records law, I will expect your response within 5 business days. CNH 91-A4. 4. If you choose to deny this request, please provide a written explanation for the denial, including a reference to the specific statutory exemptions upon which you rely. Also, please provide all segregable portions of otherwise exempt material. Please be advised that I am prepared to pursue whatever legal remedy necessary to obtain access to the requested records. I would note that a violation of the open records law can result in the award of court costs and attorney's fees. See statute 91-A81. Thank you, Ralph Fogg.
Thank you for your assistance.
Put my hand up first. And what are you trying to do for the kids of the school or the taxpayers by wasting money and doing this?
Wasting money?
Yes, because you seem to think that there's some sort of behind-the-scenes stuff going on.
I have been
There's
given
not.
an example of You don't email
it wasn't
people
a
asking
quorum.
board direction.
He did-
It's
I don't know,
against
you-
the
hold
law.
on a
Email
second.
all of
Yes,
us.
yes, we do. The budget committee will.
No, we don't.
She's gonna pull it out.
No, we don't.
Point of order.
All right.
Don't drag me into
Yeah, what is the point? So you ran for the school board.
Yeah, Jen,
What did you
please raise
do?
your
I
hand.
ran for the school board because I could see corruption going amok.
It-
Running amok. And not even 41 hours after sitting for the first time with you folks, I get an email asking everybody to tell Bob how he wants to proceed.
Individual
What the hell
emails.
is wrong with you?
It wasn't quorum. It was an individual.
It's
Let me know.
illegal. You're asking people for direction.
We disagree with you.
Okay,
do disagree with you.
I actually just came from the right to know law, where they tell you what is a meeting and what's a non-meeting and what's a non-public meeting. And a meeting is email is called contemporal. If you can communicate to each other, even if somebody's off in a rowboat, it is considered a meeting if decision-making is going on, or you take a vote, or you have discussion. So you can do administrative, you can do strategy, you can plan your meeting, but you cannot hold a discussion. Clearly, as an email, it's called contemporal, and it doesn't even matter. You can't vote, and you cannot have a discussion via emails. We do not. You can take all my emails. I don't care.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah,
Thank
we don't. You have my consent.
Mine too.
Yep.
Thank you.
And
mine.
but what I wonder is, so why are we not allowed to send you an email to your email address? Is it because we have to send it to your Yahoo? We're not supposed. I'm not going to. I'm going to send it to your SAU email, and because I'm uncomfortable in the situation where you have just come and demanded all of our emails. You can do that because we use our SAU emails to relate to each
You
other.
have my email address that I
I'm not
that
sending
I
it to your
conduct
Yahoo
school board
because I
business.
can't demand that you give us yours, because it's your personal one. So
not a
you're
personal
not
one. It's set
willing
up for my
to,
school
you're not
board
willing to be
business.
part
You
of
have a
this.
school board one.
But I already
All right,
know.
one at a time.
Here's another point. Another point. We enter non-public last meeting. First thing Mrs. Johnson says is, you need to send your email, get your emails through. It wasn't a non-public issue. And Mr. Chairman, instead of dropping the gavel on her and stopping that conversation, you allowed it. You allowed the back and forth. So when I witness a board going to non-public to discuss non-public issues and start to talk about public issues, that's a violation of law as well.
It almost seems to me like, Ralph, that you want to bring this back to the days of the last board.
I
mean,
want this-
are you here for a purpose?
Yes.
What purpose is that?
To maintain the integrity of our public
Well,
pool.
I don't
Do
think
you
that's
realize
going to
what
work
the
here. with
reputation
that.
of your board was? People watched it for entertainment and to laugh at the board. The whole year
voted you
long,
out.
our comments that we got from people where nobody watches it anymore because nobody's insulting people. No, people aren't acting badly.
All right, this.
You don't
I'm
think
sorry.
I'm insulted
sorry.
by
I'm sorry.
watching the
Point of order,
chair-
point of order. This ends, we're gonna end this. Let's go back to the original discussion that we had. What do we wanna do about a superintendent search, or whatever we wanna do here? Any comments on that?
Oh, I would, because of all of the information that I was given from the New Hampshire School Board Association, that we are very late, we have no money, very expensive, the hiring pool is low. Jerry deserves a chance. We have been running more efficiently in the last month.
Second. So based on,
I
I
would
feel,
like-
the fantastic job that he does, the rapport he has with the staff and the students, and the fact that I trust him with my children beyond any level of reasonability, I second that. Because he's good for the job, he's proven himself, no matter what anybody wants to say.
Sandy, I wanna hear from you.
I agree. I've
It's gonna
seen,
burst.
he stepped up to the plate when we needed him during deliberations. He was very professional in what he's done. There's things in the report tonight that I really agree with, that's what I want a superintendent to do. I'm willing to at least offer it for,
Ralph, I'm giving you a chance. What can I hear from
I
you?
think that if Jerry wants to work as a part-time superintendent with the $80,000 that the people voted on this past
So that'll be
March,
the board decision.
It's a bottom line.
you can't tell me that you didn't.
I'll just ask you a question, just answer that part of the question, please. We're not gonna go back and forth.
I would support if Jerry's willing to work within the budget that we proposed to the people and the people voted on.
Okay.
It was clear.
Okay, I call the question.
Make a motion?
Make a motion to call the question.
What's that
you
mean?
need to vote.
Yeah. So we
There
need
was
to
no
vote.
motion, there was no second. What
I
was the
seconded
motion?
it.
I make a motion to,
She's gonna make a motion.
Move it along.
well, to nominate Jerry Gregoire for a year as superintendent
Yes.
of
I second it.
Wakefield SAO.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Discussion.
Discussion,
The
okay.
motion and second, discussion. You haven't even
She's
talked
got her
about-
hand up, Ralph.
Okay.
Go ahead,
You
Sandy.
made the motion, I'd like to amend it to that it's for a full-time position, not a part-time position.
Oh, yes.
And do I have a second on
I
that?
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I was hoping there was more discussion. You haven't even discussed the job description. You know, we looked at that at the part of the, top of the agenda. We asked to move that into new business. So now we don't even know the description of the job, and you're voting on it. I'm definitely opposed to that vote.
Okay. Alright.
So we have to go into non-public.
We will thank you for the nomination and then the support
I
for the
have a
majority of the
question.
board.
Again,
Ralph did bring up a good,
Good, Sam.
Mr. Fogg did bring up a good question. Could we go back and do job description first and then revote?
there would be a motion to reconsider by the
Motion to
prevailing party.
reconsider.
Correct.
I thought they were, do we have a second for discussion?
Nope, it's a motion to reconsider.
I can't make it, I didn't
I know,
prevail.
you have.
I made a motion to reconsider.
Do I second?
Sure, it'll go. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Right.
Okay.
Do you want to go in order anyway?
Yeah.
Where are we? Okay.
Oh, we are in order. We are in order, so we are going to job
Let's
descriptions, which is in,
Tell us the page, please.
Yeah, no,
okay, right, you start at page 10, 12. 12.
Before we get too far in it,
Go ahead, Ralph.
how often does it happen that people write their own job descriptions?
I've done it before.
Want me to answer the question?
Go ahead.
I think it's pretty typical for it to come out of the SAU. I will say that we looked at a number of different job descriptions, kind of melded things together, looking at other school districts, taking away things that, not just the superintendent's position, the BA, student services, the admin assistant, looking at all of them. I don't think it would be atypical for the superintendent's office to write the superintendent's job description. And if there were things that were disagreed with at the board level, they certainly could be possibly amended depending on what the board wished. So what you have is a proposal to vote on.
Go ahead.
So, we started the ball rolling, with the change of leadership, because there were, some, positions had job descriptions, some did not. I have an HR background, and, so when we hired new staff, when we issued them a letter of intent, it would be nice for them to know what their roles and responsibilities are. So I asked, I had this template and format, and I asked the superintendent if he would like to move forward with this template, and he agreed. So a lot of these job descriptions are what was already in place. So I took what was existing for Wakefield School District and just modified it to this template that was, the staff that looked at it felt that this was a lot more legible and to understand than the previous one. This is a draft form. It's to be reviewed and make modifications. This is not the final copy. In the process, because there's been change in roles and responsibilities, not just at the SAU office, how it's been reorganized even throughout the whole district. So the original job descriptions were put into this format, and I questioned about what was there as far as physical demands, but that was what was there before in place, so I didn't want to modify anything to that extent until the board reviewed it, because that was what the board had seen in the past. So the individuals that were doing these roles, that were in these positions, we asked them to review them to make sure that it was still in place. What the original job description stated, some of them were dated, still existed. So there were some modifications made to that. The superintendent reviewed it. So the superintendent's position and the business administrator position was already in place before we came here. It was the existing one, and we tweaked it somewhat, looking at what other school districts, looking at the requirement for certification that's on the the DOE website what the certification requirements are to be in these roles. And we incorporated them in here. Again, they're here for the board to review. One of the things that we looked at is that previously, there was no signature. I'm just gonna look at the superintendent on page 15. There was no place that indicated that the board had reviewed it or approved it. This is now indicated on here. So this is still a draft form, so we can still make modifications. Once the job descriptions are totally acceptable to the board, it would be adopted here, and it would be so dated so that we would have it dated when the board had approved them. As people come in for jobs and get intent to hire agreements, they will also get a copy of the contract, of their job description, and read it and sign it. And they will get a copy of the signed, approved board job description, so they know what their responsibilities are, so we can hold people accountable. And they will get a copy of the signed document and keep it in the file. So we're trying to put processes in place in order to ensure that people know what their expectations are. And even every one of these says, and anything else that the superintendent or your supervisor so indicates that you would do. So it's not just limited to that, it's open to all. This is just the beginning, a first step to put things in place that has been a gap. So nobody created their own job description. Most of them are already in place, and most of them have to do with what the certification requirements are for those positions that are certified positions. Just wanted to make that clear, and how this came about.
Over the next, hopefully between now and the end of the school year, you'll have all the job descriptions of the building
Oh,
will have
good.
been addressed.
That's
So
great.
this is just, this right is where we point out, this is just the start, and really, again, part of what you didn't mention was to make it all consistent. So when you look at these, they're all consistent in the way they've been developed, the way they look, and they're easy to read.
Ralph, I think you had your hand up first.
I was just curious, is the old job descriptions available for us to see? I mean,
Oh,
are
sure,
they-
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
is
they're
it
not-
something we can see
Some
tonight
of
so we
them-
can kind of move along? or-
Tonight, I don't have.
I don't
with
have them
us.
tonight, no.
I will tell you that there was some job descriptions that were not there. One of them was the administrative assistant position. There was no job description for that, so that was new and developed. So there, like I said, there has been gaps, and we're trying to fill those gaps. The next board meeting, if the board so wishes, I could attach the old version of the job descriptions to show what the deviation is. That's up to the board.
So if you'd like, we can certainly table this into our next board meeting and bring in both the old and send the old and the new off for your review, compare and,
Tracy?
I have a couple of comments on this. The only reason I'd rather take care of the voting for the superintendent if possible.
I'm with you.
Well, you
But-
still can, I just said, you still can do that, and if you vote on this, whether you vote on this job description, we still have a job description for the superintendent that's in place
Okay.
currently.
So
Okay.
this will
Yep.
be.
This is, again,
Okay.
this is just,
Yep.
this is just part of the process that we're trying to
Okay.
clean up stuff.
Across the board.
Across the board. And so we would start with the SAU, move to the teachers, move to support staff, in the building.
Okay.
That'd be the process.
I'll make a motion to
to-
table.
I was just gonna say, is that what we do? But go for it.
Motion to table and ask for the additional information being the existing job descriptions.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Can we have a discussion?
Discussion?
I just had a question. Each of these job descriptions had physical demands on them, and I was questioning what, do we have to have physical demands?
Again, that was something that was in the existing job descriptions. Didn't want to completely take away things that currently is existing.
Okay.
So in other ones that were created, we added to be consistent, as the superintendent indicated. We didn't make any changes. If the board so chooses to eliminate that, that's okay.
I was
If the
just
board
wondering
I
if
would
they were
think you need them.
required by legality.
I was going to start also, I thought this would prevent somebody from a wheelchair, some of those physical descriptions, but I thought the motion was to table it. So did we want to discuss it, or do we want to table it?
No, we got a motion on the floor to
table it.
in a s-
Well,
in a
I think
second.
proper procedure is exhausting all the discussion and then pulling the vote, you know.
All right,
Good.
if my comments for this particular one were, like Sandy said, is I think the physical demands don't belong any longer, maybe at one time.
So let's be real here. You could get someone who is unable to do the job because they have physical limitations. And if you don't have them listed, you can't require them.
Well, I mean, this would
we're talking,
prevent.
it says seizing, holding, grasping, and otherwise work with hands. Okay? We
Well,
pretty much
lifting
need
30
that.
pounds, I don't think if you're in if you have,
If you're lifting a box of paper in an office, I mean, yeah, you do.
well, somebody in a wheelchair.
And
I think that
Somebody's
typically
gonna do
they're on job descriptions because of ADA regulations.
Okay.
'Cause somebody has to do it, Tracy.
Cindy, is that what you're gonna ask?
That's gonna leave it
Well,
in your administrative
I was just saying, if
Oh,
we
oh,
don't,
oh.
if we didn't have to have,
Typically put on job descriptions
I
because
still
of
think you
ADA
need a physical
regulations.
demand thing. But if it was required by law, I don't have objection. But if, you didn't need it by law, I would leave it in there, as the job requires.
Right, meet the demands of the job.
But,
You're opening yourself up to a mess.
Hold on. And
but
I'm
Ann just
not,
said,
I don't wanna be quoted as saying it's required by law, but if you were to not have physical limitations on the job description, and you hired someone that had physical limitations, you would really need to provide accommodations for those physical limitations.
You could have to hire 2 people to do one job because somebody can't lift or turn a page or something.
Let us do some research on
Yeah.
this and
Yeah.
come up with, what's required, what's
I'd
not
like to see
required.
what other districts maybe
Yeah,
do.
well, again, I think we'll find out what's legal
Yeah.
and what's customary.
You
Be a good, I think, a good start.
Nope.
All right.
So we're gonna be,
No, if you haven't-
We can
No, we
move,
have-
move the question.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 No.
Okay.
So you don't want to take it.
No.
All right.
Okay, are we moving on?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can we retake the vote for,
Oh, I'm just gonna force.
right, for Jerry for you?
Yep.
So,
Do you want to make the nomination to Jerry for another year? No? Great. Okay.
I move to nominate Jerry as the superintendent for 1 year for next year, for 2019, 2020 for full-time.
I just wanna make sure you got that, because I think you said.
I second it.
All in favor? More discussion, or?
Just,
He's
for the record,
plastic.
I believe this
Marie.
decision was made after the email was sent out,
Oh.
and you're following through with action.
I didn't respond to it.
There was no
There was
discussion.
no discussion.
I discussed it with
So-
Will Phillips at the New Hampshire School Board.
It's
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay.
I am opposed, I don't see the money there.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the vehicle disposal. What we have is, you see on page 41. I hope you all have that.
Oh, yeah.
So page 41, you see we have the Dodge Caravan. We have a 2006 Impala, a 2009 wheelchair bus Thomas, and a 2009 Thomas 77 passenger bus. Per our policy, we are first to offer these up to the town. I contacted Kelly Collins. She brought this to the select board last week, and they had no interest in the vehicles. And I think because it was public, we had a few requests come in to purchase the vehicle. I believe we should open this up for bidding, allow people to, put this out publicly to bid on these vehicles, put them on our website. Where else would we bid that out to, Marie, typically? Any idea? newspaper.
Posted in the newspaper.
Yeah. Again, whatever the board wants to do, Mr. Fogg, I just want to make sure that we are in agreement on that. I don't want to spend a ton of money on advertising to dispose of vehicles, quite honestly. But put this out, have them dated and stamped, and bring them back and take the highest bids.
Sandy?
My question on the disposal, and it comes up, you know, we are running a deficit budget in certain function areas, and the cost of advertising came up again, you know, is there any other way we can do it? Can we use trade-ins, or?
We can, as you see on here, Cressy has given us a trade on the 2009 Thomas wheelchair bus of $3,000. We have a value for trade-in on the 2009 Thomas 77 with significant rust issues at a $1,000 trade-in, which is just taking it off our hands, really. What they're saying with that bus is probably it'd be scrapped out or brought down to the Rochester Fair for the bus derby. It really isn't that bad a shape.
Awesome.
So whatever you want to do, again, we can, if there are bids that are higher than that, and I think we do need to make sure that we are, my concern is that I don't want it to be a select group of people that were privy to this public information at a select board meeting, and then like people getting preferential treatment. I want to make sure that we get what we should get on these vehicles.
Jen?
So that might inspire people to watch the board meetings. But what about just skipping the newspaper and putting it on the website and on Craigslist, all those freebie things, right? That's opening it wide. It's free. We don't spend any money, right? If someone's sitting in the office and has a free minute, throw it on Craigslist. Ask for written bids. Email to the SAU, or but they give you a little secret password anyway. And have an end date, and if it's better than this, then we made out.
Sandy?
I think
Ralph?
I think Jen's approach is okay. My question, the SAU car,
So
eliminating that, you're going to not have a vehicle to go to these meetings and stuff, subjecting the district to mileage.
Which meetings?
Any meetings that might happen in Concord, any meetings that, you know, the purpose of that car had always been so it was available if the superintendent or anybody in the administration or staff needed to go somewhere for training or anything like that, it was available so that we'd save money on the mileage that was often submitted.
With only that many miles, why are we getting rid of it anyway?
it's the lack of use. You know, we keep getting insured. We're not using that, and it's difficult to use with. We can use it for one child or two children if we're going some. But typically, we have more than that going. You know, whether it's a Stratford learning center, getting transported down to the seacoast area.
When's the last time it was used?
I'd have to ask the last date.
You could say, when's the last time did we pay mileage, though? I mean,
Well-
because then you'd make them use this instead of mileage.
This is, my point is that with the car, there wasn't the option. you
Of getting
know.
mileage.
Right. If you refused to use the car, you weren't supposed to be, I believe
You're
there's a
right,
policy
you're
in
right.
place. That, you know, if there was an option.
I can check, I don't know.
You choose, so hopefully, some of the documents I've asked for, I won't find that we've been paying mileage when the car has been available, because that's against the policy.
If I'm not mistaken, I thought she said there was, had been some, I mean, the car is 13 years old, maintenance on the car. So it isn't, just because you're paying mileage doesn't mean this car is free. The car has insurance, it has gas, it needs tires, it needs maintenance. And at 13 years old, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was one of the additional reasons for this car is, it is, and,
Marie, excuse me, can you see what this car's actually costing us? You don't have that numbers now, do you?
Well, again, that's really Brennan.
Yeah.
I thought it also was rusted out and whatever
Right.
else.
Is it horrendous
It's not
looking?
rusted out.
yes.
No, it's not.
It is not rusted.
No, I don't,
It's
I
the
won't
bus.
speak to it.
It's the bus.
I'd
that's
like,
the
I'd like to
rusted.
see what it's costing us before we make a decision on this one.
Tracy, I'm not
So-
letting you make that decision.
Okay, so would you like to go forward?
that's not it.
Would you like to
I'm
go
a what?
forward
Oh,
with
me?
the other
Hold on, hold
three
on.
vehicles?
We wanna go forward with the
given
other
that-
three and look into this
Well, we
vehicle?
probably could put it on all four and do the research as well, so it'd still be the option to award
Right,
the
because we don't
bid
have to take it,
whoever.
right?
So if you're gonna put it out there, you can put all four, and it's up to the board to award it to anybody.
Tracy?
The reason I know any of this was because at the deliberative, I had to ask Brennan why,
Okay.
why we needed new cars and why we were getting rid of the ones we did. So, she explained each and every single one, so that, but I, again, that was a while ago.
Yeah,
But that's,
yeah.
there is a history here, I just can't recall it.
Sandy?
So the wheelchair bus and the 77 passenger bus, those are trade-in values.
Correct.
Why would they be part of the,
We may get more.
so we'd only if we got more would we,
Right.
otherwise it'd be used as a trade-in? When does that decision have to be made by, for those to be used as a trade-in, for them to honor it?
After the deadline of the bids, after the deadline of the bid process.
I don't have a
Board reviews the
deadline.
bids.
I was thinking of what Cressy
I
has.
don't have a deadline from them.
Okay,
Oh, good. So we won't lose these.
that's what
I
I
don't
wanted to
believe
make
so.
sure we wouldn't lose
Again, I
them.
don't have a deadline that I was given, so I would have to check with Cressy.
Okay.
So you're all okay of not putting in a newspaper and doing Craigslist and the other postings that we talked about?
So I'm looking at Craigslist and our website.
Right,
Okay.
We're on Facebook,
And-
all kinds of people see it.
feel free.
And what do we want to do?
Yeah,
for-
You're on it with the rest of us.
here's, I don't want to put it under my own personal Facebook, that's not what I want to do. And I'm not quite sure that it's a proper place under the Paul School.
Why wouldn't it be?
We're not in the business of selling
Oh,
cars.
but Paul School has a Facebook page, doesn't it? And.
I think I agree with him on this one.
Even if you put that on.
Yeah.
Again,
Because then-
the will of the board, if this is what you decide you
You
want to
can look
do,
on the
I'm
website
good.
or the
I'm
Facebook
just saying,
page.
it's not something.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with the website.
I would say
Facebook.
under the SAU part.
Well, and the
Website.
Facebook page for the Paul School, I think,
Yeah,
We
fine.
can do that.
because who knows who might benefit from that.
Right.
Yep.
Nope, it's fine.
So an end date, that's the last thing we have to do with this one?
Yeah,
What
do you
do
want
you
to,
want
you want to put it the same time as our, how do we do for, I'll look at the Friday before the first meeting in May. But if it, I have to take a look at what that
The
date is.
Friday before the first meeting in May, so the first meeting in May would be the 7th. So you're saying May 4th? I'm sorry, that's Saturday, May 3rd?
May 3rd?
Yep.
Is that enough time?
How about May, the day before? I mean, is it something that you need the extra 3 days? Maybe somebody who hasn't made up their mind that weekend and.
We can, I would just.
So
look
you're
at it.
saying the 6th? Like the
Yeah.
Monday before the meeting? That's up to Jerry.
That's fine, it's up to you.
We okay with that?
Yep,
I think
The
the more
6th I'm fine
time
with.
people have, the more. the
6th
more
is fine with me.
responsive.
yep, May 6th is fine.
We will draft that up and get it out.
What's left?
Okay.
All right. Moving on, budget freeze.
Discussion came up the last board meeting about a budget freeze. Now, we have not done a budget freeze, but we have been restricting and scrutinizing purchases. As I say, the freeze in the budget prevents non-essential purchases from being completed without the approval of the superintendent. It would not prohibit purchases or payment of contractual obligations, utilities, or matters that would prevent the daily operation of school. There are things that, if something goes, we have to fix it. If there's a pipe leak, we have to fix it. If there's issues that come up with the buses, we have to fix them. The budget freeze, it prevents any non-essential purchases.
Like
which
what?
we've been, books right now. If we supplies,
Furniture.
paper, paper we might
Paper's-
need,
paper's
we might
a
need, but
necessity.
we have got that, we've got that already encumbered.
Okay. But even if it's encumbered, if you haven't spent it, isn't a freeze, doesn't that freeze it?
Marie?
Encumbered means we have an obligation, it's on the way, we purchased
Okay,
something, we're waiting,
so-
that's what encumbered means. Or
okay.
the other encumbrances are salary and benefits,
Yep.
because that's.
That required,
Okay.
but then, like, office supplies, you might have it budgeted,
depends.
but it's a frozen
Depends,
item.
yeah, again, it depends on what's essential, we need some more of this, we wanna load up because we're running low. We may need to buy a minimal amount of something rather than buying our typical 1,000 pieces.
Tracy?
I think we've been operating this way anyway. But nothing has been spent without, being under scrutiny, so,
So forego it or make it official?
make it official.
Just the part where it's approval of the, I mean, if we're all being held responsible for the spending or the lack of fiscal responsibility, we want the superintendent approving the non-essential purchases, or do we want the school board approving the non-essential purchases?
Jen?
We only meet twice a month. I think Jerry can control himself well enough to implement a budget freeze when it comes to office supplies.
All right, need a motion on the budget?
Yes.
Anybody wanna make a motion? Go ahead, sorry, Mr. Ernie.
With the approval, non-essential purchases, is there something that we could give a monetary amount that he has discretion up to, and after that he comes to us?
I
or-
think he has the ability to make discretionary spending decisions under a frozen budget, because we're gonna see it afterward, and
Hold me
it's his
accountable.
job, right, hold him accountable because it's his job.
Right.
He's not 12. And I picked 12 on purpose.
Wasn't there already something in place about any purchase over $3,000 that needs to be approved by the school board?
Yeah, but I believe he knows that.
Yeah, that was.
But not encumbered. I mean, we
I
owe,
understand that.
right.
Again, there will be, fuel, if we have to have, propane or whatever it is, if there's a repair, that's gonna happen. I'll certainly
Electric
keep,
bill?
Yeah, I'll keep you apprised of that as we have to do those, especially if it's a significant cost. But, again, the idea right now would be to limit anything that's not essential.
Anybody
Which
wanna
again,
make a
that's how
motion?
we've been functioning.
You're seeking a motion to freeze the budget?
Yeah, I asked if we should do a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Just back on the bid thing real quick, I do have 2 bids that was handed to me tonight, I'm gonna give those back to you.
And if I may, Chair, under other business, can I add a C? We had, is you okay with that?
It's a D, actually, we had cafe services.
Oh, you put, all right. I put them in there as
That's
well,
okay.
and I added onto that. So we had cafe services in here. We are required to either renew their contract or go out to bid. We're not required to go out to bid, but every 5 years. We're not that time frame. You have that option. But I would submit that to the board, that we should make a decision on that sooner rather than later.
I'll make a motion to approve the contracts with cafe services.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, any discussion?
Is there anything that we need to be aware of that they're not providing the school district?
I just want to qualify that before we're done here, is to make sure that the costs are within what we're expecting.
Actually, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
If we were not raising, it's just for discussion. Last year, we were asked to raise the cost of the meal, and we were behind on what you were supposed to be. Is that gonna happen this year?
It's 2 questions. The first thing is, are we gonna move forward with cafe services?
Okay.
That's the first question. The next board meeting, as part of my business administrative report, I will ask the board to raise the prices for the meals. It's mandated. For the benefit of everybody who is not aware, the federal government requires that school districts' full pay meals at least equals what we're getting reimbursed for free meals. And it's close to $3 a meal that we're getting reimbursed. We're not charging $3 a meal
Like
for the
$2.80,
middle school. With $2.75 we're charging for the upper grades and $2.50 for the younger grades. It's required by law. Again, this is separate from cafe services. That the
Last
district
question,
shows a good effort that they're trying to meet that requirement by raising the meal prices at least 10 cents. Doesn't mean that it's gonna be making the food service fiscally responsible, because you're still not providing the price of a full meal. So there still may be a subsidy or money that has to be moved from the operating budget to the food service fund to make it whole. And it's a requirement by the federal law.
Remember?
So it's two separate questions, you're right, we are gonna have to raise the prices, at least 10 cents. We'll come to the board with that the next meeting, it's totally different.
Sorry.
Yep.
Jen?
Can we also discuss, while we're discussing it next time, I'd like to know what our options are regarding people who don't pay for their lunches. There's got to be something, we've seen lots of them on the news, they
We've
get
been down that road a
nays,
lot.
they get nays. Huh?
We've been down that road a lot.
Well, not when I was here.
Right.
And,
Good
you
to
know,
revisit.
Yeah.
I'd like to know the details, cause it, you know, kind of burns my butt that people just don't pay. You know, cause that's, we end up paying it out of the school budget.
So can you get us that list of where we stand with what we've had before, from
So the last-
from high to
we-
low?
We
Next
know,
time.
we know that last year, the district was on the hook for for the full service meal because the application was approved and we weren't getting claims because of the transition. We know that. So we don't have something to gauge for fiscal year 18. This was reported to the board before, that when, in July of
Yeah, yeah.
18, we were looking at what happened, where the information for students, when we moved students from 8th grade out of the food service program software, because they graduated to the high school, and what was happening, we discovered that the server for the food service was still residing at SAU 64 and hadn't been updated since 2017. So it was a year and a half of information that was dated. So we're still playing catch up. So we're still gonna have negative balances based on trying to still address that issue.
So, going forward, I mean, cutting your losses, bam, here's a calendar year or a fiscal year,
I thought we always did that.
And you're done.
It starts over to the next
and
year.
you're done, right? So, all I'm interested in, because, yeah, the errors notwithstanding, we all know about them, we agree with them, we're not trying to make anybody eat crow on them again, it's done and over. I'm just looking to know, going this year,
You're asking for what our debt is, what our
What
our
student
debt-
debt
What I'm
is.
getting to it is that the information was not accurate through this year, July of 18, was not discovered till the fall, November of 18, when we converted to new software that now everything is being accounted for appropriately. So again, there's a gap from July of this current year till November of people that, some people got overbilled, some people got, people at this board, or people here in the community know that they got invoices that they had outstanding balances for 2 years ago because the system was inaccurate. So, yes, we still have a negative balance, and if you'd like to, we could look at from November forward to see what that negative balance is.
fine.
And that's to,
Fine, but I would like to know not just our group negative balance, but I'd like the breakdown of it. I know you can't tell specifics of people.
Nope,
but I would-
in the past,
But I would
We've
like to know.
sanitized that before, where
Okay.
you,
I'd
the
like to know
names are taken off.
How many families or how many
Yep.
kids and from, I don't care if you start in September or November, as long as you tell
Okay.
me it's November. And so November to now, what kind of a debt are we carrying? And what are our options? Cause I just don't like it not being fair, and if you can't afford lunch, you apply for aid, whether you're embarrassed or not, because otherwise the taxpayers are sucking up your, having to pay your debt.
I think what we could provide, Marie, you tell me if you agree, that we could sanitize the names, assign a number, and give that to you. I wouldn't.
By grade, because we had it by grade too, so
Yeah,
we
by
knew
grade.
we knew what grade was.
okay, no problem.
The
How many
highest
families,
to
how many
lowest.
We'll try to
kids?
break out a couple of ways,
Yeah.
but, really, I think the significant piece is, typically it's more than one child, but it's usually, several children in a family, and
That's what our
sometimes
options are.
sometimes you got kids who, the parents don't know the kid's getting, pulling off a la carte, and they're sending their bill in, and so they're sending what they expect, and they see that they're getting a bill.
Oh, yeah,
I'll have that
I
report
look
to
at
you.
mine and
Yeah.
say, didn't we make you a sandwich every day this week?
Something like that.
Larissa, what was the motion on the floor?
To approve the contract for cafe services.
Good question.
I give it money, and then she can have what she you want?
Yes, to approve the contract cafe services.
And
Ralph?
who made that motion? Ralph, and you second it?
I don't think I did.
I think I seconded
Second.
it. And, but he did have a question saying, is there anything that we're missing from cafe services
Or anything that we need to be aware of.
be aware of
That's-
that didn't get answered?
But, I mean, I did kinda hear it. I did
Okay.
kinda hear the answer to the question.
Okay. Sorry, I
So a
jumped in.
motion-
Your question made me think of one, so,
You all set?
yeah.
The motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ralph, as a school board member and you're local, tell them ahead of time to stop in and have lunch and tell us how it was. I went 3 times last year.
I'll
and
go with you.
1 out of 3 was good.
All
I'll
right.
go with you. I did it with Jen.
Ready?
He's not jumping.
Public comment.
Nope, not there yet.
Not there yet?
Well,
Well,
we are,
that's
yeah,
okay.
we are. It's, I'm sorry, we just wanna make sure we don't miss the resignations
Yep.
and nominations.
Public comment. Priscilla.
A little clarification about that car. It was an SAU car. There was an SAU policy that the employees would take it to meetings. We got it in the division. I think we paid like $1,100 for it. We took it for, in case there was one student that we could drive, or we knew we could make more than $1,100 for it. So that was the whole thing with that one. So there's no policy, Wakefield policy on that one.
All right, thank you.
Do you have to put out the superintendent position? Do you have to put that out to application, or can you just hire within legally?
Go ahead.
I thoroughly asked Will Phillips from the school board, and he said it's not a good time, and no, we do not have to, and we searched for a policy ourselves, tried to do our thorough research on to make sure.
Okay, I didn't know, it was just a question.
Yeah, no, I did,
Cover
I
your
made
butt.
sure, when I called New Hampshire School Board Association, I made sure that if we did, we would,
Okay.
and it was not required.
And I'm wondering why you're redoing the job descriptions. The transition team and the school board at the time spent a lot of time doing those descriptions. There is one that exists for the administrative assistant. I have it. We did it for the part-time superintendent, part-time student services director, full-time financial manager or BA, full-time administrative assistant, part-time bookkeeper, transportation coordinator, facilities manager. And I understand some of those things are changing, but it just kind of surprised me. I mean, we spent an awful lot of time doing that, and they were voted on by the board. The weights, et cetera, at the bottom has to be there by law. We were told by our attorney at the time that has to be on the job description.
Yeah, I think part of it, you'll see that when we compare the two, if you want me to answer this,
Okay.
sorry. That you'll find a lot of it's just the formatting, making sure they're all across the board, the entire Wakefield School District, as we address all the job descriptions, making sure that a lot of them are just formatted the same.
That's
Once
what
it,
we did.
yeah, and
So not necessarily changing.
some have been,
Some.
there have been some changes, but.
I haven't checked them to see what.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, but primarily we want to make everything consistent and start with the SAU. They have the grant position in there, and that's new since the transition. So again, just making sure everything's consistent. You know, my push right now is to ensure that we have process and procedure laid out for almost everything we do, so that when someone looks at it, it's not like, oh, I think we did it this way. Here's how we do it, and it can make everything consistent.
And how are you guys gonna pay for the SRO? You don't have a line in the budget.
Okay.
That was determined that the town budget, that the town would put that in their budget as it fell under the police chief's authority.
Right.
That the SRO doesn't answer to building level or SAU level administration.
Right.
They get guidance, but really ultimately it's the chief, and so it came under their purview.
Right, and then if you look at the contract on page 37, it says you will reimburse
Yeah.
75%.
Well, yeah, and you probably, we were discussing probably before the meeting started, but I handed out an updated, because that was the one that was prior to the MOU that I signed with the chief. That piece is eliminated.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah, no, that's why, you know what, I caught that after Priscilla, so that's why we added that new MOU.
Because we had gone through this with the budget committee,
Yep.
that it was gonna be in the police
Yep,
budget,
yep,
so that we weren't
yep.
gonna go back and forth. Then I'm looking at this and I'm thinking.
Yeah, I apologize. That's why you're asking, because you have that, and we
Yeah.
brought that in tonight, because I realized that we had put in the old MOU.
Okay, one more thing.
Ann?
Just an FYI, last spring, there were a number of Chris reviewed all the job descriptions, and there were a lot of changes made to the job descriptions.
Oh, that's right.
I heard it was
We
position
remember doing them,
changes.
yeah.
And I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't remember the board ever agreeing to any position
I don't
changes.
believe they went to the board last year.
I don't think they did, they just changed.
It was left, it was
So
one of
maybe
those things that
should
was left
be,
not done.
It was done and undone.
Position
Right,
changes?
it was on the to-do list.
Did you have one other thing, Priscilla?
No, I can't find it.
All right. All set?
I'm all set.
Oh, there is one more thing.
Oh, too
you-
late.
And you approved Jerry as a superintendent, but no, you didn't talk about his benefit package.
We're going into non-public.
And his pay and so on and so forth, so you're approving him, he still has to accept that position.
Correct.
Okay.
I would accept that, said thank you for your support.
Resignation nominations, teacher renewal,
Sure, if you look at page 44 of your packet,
getting down to the end here.
you have a list of names representing our teachers. There are two sections, non-continuing contracts and continuing contracts. So I'd be looking for approval for this list.
I'll make a motion to approve these contracts pending discussion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Jen?
I want to see reviews. I won't vote yes on anybody without a review. And last year we were forced into it. I was brand new. I was very unhappy with it. And I don't care who it is, even if it's my favorite teacher in school, without a review in front of me, I won't approve any of them.
Ralph?
I'm just curious, what's the difference between non-continuing contracts and continuing contracts? Is that one tenured? Because I see the numbers are all fairly low in the non-continuing.
Correct. Currently in this state, tenure, if you will, is considered 5 years.
I thought it was 7.
It's 5. It was 3. It was advanced to. It was 3. It was advanced to 5 several years ago, and it's before the legislature now to move it back to 3.
It's in that packet that just came out.
If the motion fails tonight, because we want to see the information Jen's asking for, aren't those part of the contract where reviews are supposed to happen once a year?
They do.
They do?
Yes.
For everybody?
For everybody.
For as long as you know?
What do you mean what do you mean for as long as I know?
For what I mean is, it's historically, it's
Yes,
always happened.
yes, yeah.
Okay, well, okay, all right. That's on the record.
Sure.
So we have a motion. You want another comment?
Yeah, I do. What about possibly tabling this until,
I don't.
sorry.
Go ahead.
There's an RSA that states that it's required that teachers who are gonna be renewed need to have their letter of intent by April 15th.
Well, then you better get moving on those reviews. It's just because you put something off doesn't mean you don't need the information to make the decision. We were forced into it last year, and I was uncomfortable with it, and I was pretty clear after that, because our prior superintendent said something that made us feel like we had to do it, and then told us afterward we shouldn't have done it after we made the vote. And I think I learned from that mistake.
When's our next meeting?
April 5th, 16th.
That would
The
not
day
be,
after.
should have been planned better then.
Can I?
Do you want to change the date of the next meeting so that we can address it prior to the deadline?
Jim, you had something?
I won't be here.
I have a question, and I guess I want to know moving forward is I would prefer we be a high achieving district, and I want my mindset to be clear on where we're at here. But when I think about it, Jen, I think of the evaluation happening at the end of the year, so it encompasses, like if I evaluate now, I'm not really evaluating the rest of April, May, or June, and it will be for me, it will be challenging to remember April, May, June, come evaluations next year. I'll do what I'm
Take notes.
advised to do.
Um,
That's my thinking.
But if you were in the public, in a business, and your hire date is April 15th, you get a review up until that date, and you either get a raise, you stay the same, or you get canned. It doesn't matter that it's what the school year is or the calendar year is, because we know this is coming. And last year, we were told if we didn't just blindly support this, we weren't supporting the administration. And I feel that one of our issues in the school, it's not spending too much money on the teachers. We have some fantastic teachers, but we also have room for improvement. This is where we need to make it. And I'm not gonna just blindly say, yes, continue the contract, when personal experience or listening to other parents and listening to complaints, I could probably pick several people right out of there that I wouldn't want to have at the school. And I'd like to see what you see as their review qualities. I may have a favorite teacher here that you think is not a good teacher. That'd be good for the school board to know, instead of just blindly approving it.
Go ahead, either one of these.
Mine's not really a discussion. You did reviews, but you did them back in December. They just didn't make it to the board. Like you're saying, I don't think Jen is saying that you need to do one right now.
No, we have,
There was
they're
one done
scheduled
for
by
this
their
year.
contracts every year, right?
What
not saying
we
me.
do, typically is we schedule walkthroughs throughout the year, or we schedule full evaluations for non-continuing teachers. Those are typically done throughout the school year. And a formal review typically isn't done until around May.
Well, if you know their contracts are up for hire on April 15th, you
just-
probably ought to change that.
Teachers have to know well before that, before April 15th, if we're going to non-renew them. And if we don't plan on non-renewing them, the expectation they'll be renewed. So at this point, there is nobody that we're expecting to non-renew.
So what happens if the school board doesn't vote to continue, or how do we term this, what we're voting for?
If you don't approve the nominations.
Like, I assume we're doing it, we can do it on an individual basis here. What if the school board says, no, we don't wish to approve this one? What happens?
Let me hear from Sandy.
Okay, trying to collect my thoughts here. I feel that the administration has come up with this and presented it to us. I don't think it's our position to undermine what they do. I understand your concerns, I really do, because I've been a parent. But I also feel we need to take ourselves back and look, do we have faith in our administration that who they're presenting or who they want in this building? That being said, we have two lists here. I would suggest maybe taking non-continuing contracts, voting on them separately as a group, and then voting on continuing contracts as a group.
Jen?
I'm more thinking of this as a school board member and trying to make my school a better place than I am actually a parent. And if I'm required to vote something in, then I should be required to take responsibility for that vote. If this is to be left up to the administration, then the school board shouldn't have to vote on it. The fact that we vote on it means that we have to be educated about it and make a good decision.
We'll just agree to disagree on the way we approach it, and that's fine.
But we shouldn't have to vote on it then.
Tracy?
This has been an ongoing issue. Literally a year ago, Jen asked for it.
Never
and
saw
I
it.
knew that the reviews were done. I kept wondering when.
But we were told afterward they weren't, remember?
But it was not true. So regardless.
So I believe that they were done.
Yeah. So it has been an issue. It has. We would like to see more consideration. Our goal this year is to improve performance all the way around. What can we do?
And not to, more respect what you're saying, Jen, I'm not quite sure. I have to look into how much information you can see from a personnel record.
Okay,
Okay.
we talked about it last year,
Yeah.
and it was a matter of not being able to, for the board, the full board to see it. Hey, we're not supposed to look at cell phones at the table.
I'm looking at the calendar.
So what? We weren't allowed to see it as a full board because if somebody wanted to fight the decision, there would be no board to hear it. It would have to go to the state right away.
Oh, sure.
So we discussed possibly having 2 out of the 5 see them and make a recommendation to the full board.
And there was
if,
no action
and
taken.
if somebody had to come, they'd come to those 3 and the 2 would be excluded. Or we can see them blindly with a number on them, clearly not 1, 2, 3, 4, because now we have this list.
Right.
And we can see how they were rated, graded, what the problems were, and we can say that we support this one, but geez, this doesn't look good.
Yeah. I think trying to move this forward would be to come up with a plan to allow you to have some oversight that doesn't look at the individual. To say, to pick one person out of here and say, okay, this person right here by name as a 2.5, but maybe coming up with something that you can see that.
I don't want to see just one rating. I want to see this is how they do.
When
This is what they.
I say 2.5. They're broken down over 4 areas that they're evaluated on in multiple points within each area. So there may be upwards of 16 different points that have a score attached to it. But I would also want to check with our attorney about how, what you can see out of a personnel record as a board member, which you're not privy to, to be able to go through somebody's personnel file. So I would want to have to determine what
because
exactly you could see.
One of those good things would be like, which is probably going to fall under that, but I'd be interested in would be attendance to, after school things like open houses and such like that, or just general attendance. And again, of course, teaching and scores.
Well,
Is it possible for the board to meet sometime, and I understand you might not be here, but hopefully you have the trust in the 4 of us. Could we meet like on Thursday, April 11th? I don't know if staff and administrators could make it on that, that's a Thursday. I think it's important what you're saying, Jen, I really do. And I'm almost interested in, well, I am interested in seeing the same information. I am interested in beating that deadline. So, is it possible that we can meet on?
you're not here?
No.
Is
Well-
anybody around on the 10th?
Let me just say, again, reviews have not been done for this year. There was no direction given from the superintendent to have reviews done.
Isn't there contractual obligations to do reviews throughout the year?
The contractual
They are
obligation.
observations, not reviewed. So the with observations, the
So
walkthroughs.
we talked about this all through the year, because this has been like the thing that I've been kicking around over and over and driving you guys crazy with
No,
since the last time it
all
happened.
of us have. We've been.
Okay,
it's
so
been
how can we
unified.
come up on this date and not have
And
it ready?
Contractual obligation is if you're going to non-renew a teacher, it needs to be done by December 1st.
I thought there was something in there about, wasn't there something in there about
Evaluations.
evaluations? There was something in there about evaluations when they have to take place, that they have to take place. And really, I've been pretty straightforward about this since this time last year. So if the deadline's coming and you don't have it done, that's not bad on us. That means you guys need to get it done.
what can you have, Jerry?
I mean, if we were making decisions on completed evaluations, there'll be the evaluations that were completed in by last May, not wait, last June, when they were finally completed,
All right.
passed in.
We'll take what we can get.
But we won't, it's not gonna make me happy. It's not, I don't
At
think.
least it's an evaluation.
But I don't understand how we can know this is coming and not have it done. This isn't a surprise. We didn't suddenly get this date last week.
I do have because the dynamics were different, who was in what position. What
It
I
should have
mean
been
is-
happening the whole time
What I
along.
meant is, I think the communication didn't get to perhaps that level. I don't know.
Again, certainly it was clear that you were, that the discussion was happening last year.
Yeah.
But again, I wasn't privy to the information that you were told that you shouldn't have made that determination. That's not, and again, I don't know the context of that, the language that was
It was
used.
at a meeting. In the SAU, it was at a full board
I'm just
meeting.
saying, I'm not privy to that. So I don't know, and it wasn't passed to me that this was, it needed to be done prior to a nomination, which has not been the case in any school that I've been in, or in any year here.
Maybe not in any, but last year we were very clear about it.
I'm hearing that, I'm hearing what you're saying, I'm just saying the expectation was not passed on to me about how we were going to do that, or that we were gonna be changing the method in which
I
we did
think
that.
what I said every week, every meeting since then
I
was,
understand.
I'm not voting for him.
Ralph?
So, between now and, well, so let's see if we can meet again before the date, if there's something that works for the four of us, because Sandy's won't be able to attend. If it's 5 days, 6 days of working, there's 44 names that I counted, that would be, you know, eight reviews a day, or eight updates to a review that was done back in December. Is it impossible to achieve that or accomplish that mission?
I mean, the attendance records should be already there.
And
If we're
maybe,
allowed to
you
see
know,
them.
maybe vice principal, principal, and superintendent can all work together and break that 44 down by 3, and 5 days later, 6 days later, you have, I mean, Jerry, you know as well as Jim and Jen, you know, what the teachers have been doing for the last 12 months. I don't think it's an impossible task.
It's a pretty lofty task, I can tell you that.
Sandy?
To get these done, you know, and what we're talking about, being thorough and fair.
That's Sandy.
Okay, I have several comments. One is that I think it would be helpful going forward that if, as a board, we could have a list of things at our fingertips that, when dates have to be done according to contracts, excuse me. And then, the second of all, I see nothing on here. I firmly believe it's not our job to second guess the administration. I've said it before. So if I was to vote today, I would have to say yes for all of these. I've known, because I've been involved, that it is April 15th. It's a little bit later for Paris. It's something that's been out there, but if you haven't been involved with the school board, I can see where that's been a problem. But I firmly believe that maybe having a list that we could keep at our fingertips in our folder each month, so we know what we're looking at. But I support the administration on this.
Jen?
2 parts. First, being involved in the school board or not, because I did not get it done. Okay, so, and we've all been clear about this all year long. And how can, this is everybody, right? This is everybody
These are
that
the
works here?
teachers. No,
Right.
these are
But they're
teachers.
all, everybody is up for renomination? There's not one person in the school that you think didn't do a good job? In the whole school? And with, I mean, no offense, but with the test scores and the problems that we've had, and I'm not looking for a scapegoat. If you say, yeah, really, there's not one person in here that I think shouldn't be renominated, I'd be surprised, but okay. But it's still, if we're not supposed to have an opinion, if we're not supposed to weigh in with that opinion, with an educated opinion, we wouldn't be required to vote on it.
Sandy?
The way I've understood teacher nominations in the past in other districts is that concerns have been brought to the boards in non-public before they voted on it. And since they haven't brought anybody forward, I have to feel that they don't feel are any people with big deficits.
There are improvement plans, which we're required to do. There's nobody left on this list that I think would not qualify for renomination.
All right, so you can have something together, or is that difficult to have that to change?
It's very.
Oh, there is a motion on the table.
Yep. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna echo what Ann said. Based on the current agreement we have with the teachers, there's a section in there that says that teachers who are not gonna be renewed need to be notified by December 1st. If the board continues in the path that they're going through, we may be in violation of the current agreement with the teachers. If nobody has been notified by December 1st, my understanding is that they're gonna be.
Risk of renewal, a risk of non-renewal, not that they won't be renewed, but a risk of non-renewal.
So, kind of what you're saying though is because something didn't get done and brought to us, we should just let it go. That's not really how things work. They're not supposed to
I'm
anyway.
not saying, I'm not, that's not what I'm indicating. I'm just stating what's in the current agreement. I don't know what the process was in the past, if staff members that were not gonna be renewed, it was brought to the board before. I don't know that. I'm just indicating what is currently in the agreement that could be a violation of that if we haven't followed that process, that's all.
Ann, did you have something?
I just wonder if the evaluation process has been reviewed by the board.
But we've tried hard. We talked
I don't mean
evaluations
the
into the
process
ground.
itself,
I don't
the
mean by
process
person,
itself,
but the
not by-
evaluation process.
Sandy?
There's a document that describes the evaluation
Yeah,
process.
we've seen that.
So for instance, I believe there's 10 walkthroughs for a teacher a year. There are certain teachers that need to have a formal evaluation or observation versus teachers that don't need it. I just don't know if you've seen that. It's not gonna speak, I mean, there is, in the rubric, there is a section that might speak to attendance, but it's not gonna say in that rubric, the person has bad attendance. So I wonder if it would be beneficial for the board. I am concerned that you're gonna, and I haven't read the CBA completely, but, I think if you don't renew by April 15th, you have to submit pink slips to all of your teachers.
Yeah.
Oh, we better move fast.
Sandy?
I move the question.
I just had two little pieces.
Sorry. Well,
Well,
first we have to vote to see if we want to move the question, and then if we say no, then you may speak. So we need a vote to move, to whether or not we're
we
gonna
have a
move the
motion and a
question.
I don't know what that means, to be honest with you.
Oh, there's no second,
What does that mean?
if I
It
move
means
the
it's time to
question.
take a vote.
On
No,
whether we
no,
do this.
it means that, have we finished discussing? Just
Yeah.
because she's making a motion to move the
But we
question.
have to vote to see if we want to continue discussion.
That's correct.
Okay. You don't need a second for that?
No.
You're just saying, you're just basically saying,
Yes.
do we have more discussion?
Yes.
Do we have more discussion?
Well, we have to
yes.
say aye or nay.
Aye? We do?
I do.
Well,
Just
No.
a little bit.
on her motion to move, I say nay,
I say nay.
because of more discussion possible.
Oh, so I say yes.
Oh, so nay makes it a, yes, we want to discuss it?
Yes,
Nay.
Yes.
okay.
All right,
Keep discussing.
let's continue.
Okay.
This is a big
This
deal.
is actually, I believe, a piece that was recently negotiated and that didn't pass. We wanted to, we agreed with the teachers to redo the evaluation process. It was a very successful piece of the negotiations, along with the insurance and other items that were really, really productive. But it does seem, yes, we very much want a better evaluation process. This board strongly went for it in the contract negotiations. I don't want to give, it isn't productive to give everybody pink slips. I do
No, so
feel.
we need to get done in time, because this is sort of what you said last year about if we didn't, everything we said about doing things was going against what we said all year. If we don't hold, if
I'm
we don't hold
disappointed.
fast to
There
this,
is
then
no,
we,
I agree. I
we've
am
done nothing.
very, very disappointed, but I do feel there was a huge communication
all
problem
there.
all year long. There was.
we were all there.
We were all there, but and where it was discussed is, yes, we were all there, but it is very disappointing. But I don't know that the end result is worth,
Then we
we've
get
had
it
the
done.
discussion, I'm guessing it's never gonna happen again. I don't think it's worth the disruption that it would cause.
So we get it done on time.
And
I feel like I'm speaking more for other people than myself, because I have the least amount of evaluations to do at the table. But maybe I wasn't at the board meeting where it was made clear that evaluations need to be done before nominations, because that means they should have been done last month. And if you're asking my 6, can I do them with fidelity? I won't feel as good about my evaluations as I would if I could do them in the timeline that I usually take, which is that they get their evaluations by the end of May, usually.
Then we should be
But
renewing contracts
the
then.
time of fidelity, but you,
That's a statement.
You
I
can't,
think you have to communicate that to all these people at the table
I was-
before you can.
have I ever been shy about anything? I have been very
This is
clear.
for me, this is the first I've heard.
It's
that
been a
you want
problem
to
over and
review
over again for me.
Evaluations prior to nomination.
Ralph,
So is it impossible to have one more meeting before the 15th?
but they have to get the evaluations done.
I understand, but that's kind of the pressure cooker that I hear, Jen, and I believe that the request has been made in the past. So somewhere along the line, there was a fumble, and somebody's got to recover the fumble. And I do want to make sure that this is addressed before the deadline. I don't think pink slips are warranted or due. But I think the information that, I mean, we as a board should be informed when we're making these decisions.
Okay, go back to the original thing, why are we here? We're here for the kids. I don't think giving everybody, I agree with you completely. I was part of it. I know you asked, you were clear as a bell. I don't think giving everybody pink slips
We're not going to. We get it done in time. If this was the outside world,
is beneficial
you
for
don't
the
just give
kids.
somebody a job. So, but keeping teachers, and I'm saying few and far between. I'm granting you that. We have some fabulous people here. I would not ever dream of wanting to give them pink slips.
We're on the same page.
But there are people here who do need to move on,
Right.
and I'm flabbergasted that it's an issue because I've been very vocal about it. And I'm just, my stand just is, I will not vote to approve this as a blank slate. I won't do it. And I think anybody who does is not holding up their job.
Sandy?
Just one last quick thing, and that is, if you vote to move on to have another, meeting on this, I'm sorely, I don't agree with it at all. I don't think, the administration, either the SAU and what the principal has come up with, I think we're undermining them, and I don't agree with it at all.
But the point is, we shouldn't have to vote on it.
All right.
What's the motion that's on the table?
The motion on the table is to approve the contracts on the
Okay.
floor. But part of discussion before we, and you did move and we all, nay, wait, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Remember, guys, I'm thinking about Kate. She doesn't like me either.
Do we want to take a vote?
If we do move the question, I would, and if the motion fails, I would hope that the board could find room for discussion on setting up a time where we can meet again and discuss this again before the April 15th deadline.
Yeah.
That's my own.
That's the responsible
Jerry?
thing.
No, I would.
See, I would ask you to approve it tonight and have a clear direction from the board as a whole of when you want evaluations done. You know, for us to have the evaluations done, if it has to be done by December before we can, because again, we have to let people know by December if they're at risk of non-renewal, then the evaluations need to be done by December. Now, that would be far outside of the norm of any place I've ever worked,
Well,
either as a teacher or as an administrator. But if that's the direction of the board as a whole, we can meet that expectation. It will not be a year-long evaluation that determines, but it will be determined, again, by the time period between the end of August and early December.
I think perhaps a deadline of the second meeting in February would be reasonable. That way, you know, you're looking at March elections.
Yeah.
The people who have dealt with everything for the past year are on the board and able to make a reasonable conclusion to the information they're given by that deadline,
Again, my objection here is that I was not given this clear direction from the board as a whole, nor from the superintendent from a discussion that was had in the SAU. I understand your feeling on it. I truly, and I know
I
we.
was really vocal
I know,
about it and clear.
but my point here, Jen, is that a clear direction from the board as a whole to change wholesale what we've always done in the school and what my experience has been as an administrator. And I'm not unwilling to make some changes at all, but I need to have clear direction from the board as a whole, not just a consensus discussion, because this is a big deal.
Yep.
So that's why I would ask you to approve it here, now, and that we come up with a plan for the following year so we don't bump into this again. Because I don't want to this is not how I wanted this nomination to go, not how I expected it to go. And I want to make sure we meet the expectations of the board within reason, as well as what the teachers can expect from an evaluation that goes up until halfway through the school year.
Sandy?
We're past our 8 o'clock meeting deadline. We need to take a vote to continue. Can I have it as a roll call?
To continue? We don't need a second.
Yeah, you do.
Second it.
All in favor?
to
Johnson,
continue
aye.
this meeting?
Continue this meeting.
Yes.
Fog eye.
Johnson,
Macaulay, aye.
Cole, bye.
What aye? All right. Jim?
So I'm looking at the contract as we speak about it, so teachers need to be made aware that they're in danger of not being renewed December 1. They need 40 minutes of observation before the 90th day of the school year, and they need 80 minutes of observation total with post-observation debrief. That's what's in the contract.
So
You're ready to
there's-
start tomorrow.
There should be some of that already done then, if that's in the contract. And if that's the case, then this shouldn't be coming before the school board 2 weeks before pink slips would go out.
Jason?
We've been slammed. We've gone from budget to, we've changed admin.
This is
I
the thing that is
agree.
biggest in my whole thing here.
I agree with you. I know it has been, and, anyway, I'm ready to vote.
So, anybody want to make a motion?
Well, if there's a motion on the table, you might want to
Oh,
move.
yeah, can you tell me what that is again?
To forward and approve the contracts for the non-continuing and continuing.
And who made that
contracts.
motion?
I did.
And who seconded it?
I did.
And could we have a roll call?
On
Sure.
that discussion, yeah.
Yes.
All in favor?
Cole, bye.
Johnson, aye.
What aye?
I'm gonna withdraw being on the teacher thing. I really am.
Opposed?
I am very opposed.
I'll oppose the, once again, I make a motion or a second, and I oppose the action.
So clearly, for our next agenda, we need to start looking at how we're going to process this.
But Jim just explained it, so maybe both those requirements can be accomplished before our second meeting in February next year.
I think I want to make sure that we have clear direction from the board as a whole. Again, because it's outside the norm. I'm not unwilling to make a change myself personally, but I want to make sure that we have a clear direction from the entire board, whether passes 3-2 or 5-0.
I won't vote for it again if this happens again.
No, but what I'm saying, Tracy, is I want clear direction from the board as a whole about how we want to make this happen.
In the form of consensus, or do you need a motion?
I will bring a proposal to you, and you guys could.
I mean, we've got to,
I'm
we
going to
know
bring
what the solution is.
I know. I'm saying I will bring a solution to the board, and we'll make a decision whether we vote on it or we have it by consensus. But we have a decision as a whole board that everybody's clear on.
Consensus now at this point in our lives, or?
I'd like to have the opportunity to kind of
I
bring out,
would
you know.
and I would rather see what you come up with.
Yeah, let's
I
just do
think
that.
we.
Again, I want to make sure that what I give
don't
you, I
feel
legally
comfortable
can
in
give
making
you
a
as well.
decision right now.
But I think at least I know on the negotiating table, all parties were very interested in improving this process. All parties were. This has not been successful, and Jen has pointed it out for an entire year.
Yep.
Thanks for backing me on it. I'm pissed, because this is the thing, you guys just cheated what we've talked about all year, and you've always been opposed to it, so I get that, no problem. But we've talked about this all year, and this was a big deal, and the
Actually,
fact that it's given to us at the 11th hour
I-
doesn't make it our problem.
I support you 200%.
Nope,
I don't
you do
see the
not.
chaos as
No.
helping the kids. And it was wrong. You are absolutely right. The whole process was. I just don't think the kids, I don't think they need one more upheaval.
It's an upheaval, getting some evaluations done quickly when they should have been done, so we can actually vote on them. Your vote right now means nothing, because you can't pick anybody out of this thing,
Oh,
except
I
for a few
agree.
people you hear about, that you could say, oh, he's a star, or she's a star. You just voted
I
blindly.
agree with you completely.
Yeah.
Let's move
I'm
on.
really unhappy with this board right now.
Correspondence?
You also have a resignation from Emily Smith, paraprofessional. She'll be moving out of the area, so she's has resigned.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the resignation with regrets.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Jen?
I'm abstaining.
What do you got for?
We have a request in your packet from Valerie Ward, requesting that the school be used as the public election
Page
place.
45.
I'll make a motion to approve our town clerk's request to the school board,
Why are they doing that?
because generally presidential elections are larger, and this is what it's going to address, is the 2020 election.
That was here before,
It's
wasn't
happened
it?
past,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a
I
motion
don't know
and a
if
second?
it's centered all
Long time
around
ago, right?
the entire gymnasium.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4 years ago.
Make a motion to go into non-public, according to RSA 91A, semicolon 3, part 2, and I don't know if it's A, B, or C, B, or F.
They put most of it away.
I just lost the power on my camera, so if you want anything more recorded, I can go get another cord and come back.
We're going into non-public.
Oh, good, it just made it.